Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tailosive EV live on YouTube. Sorry, there's a bunch of stuff on the screen happening all at the same time, but we've got Tesla earnings report. This is a recap for 2023, and hopefully we might also get some guidance for 2024. I'm very curious about what their production estimates are. There's a lot of rumors going around, a newly coined Project Redwood, which is in reference to the next generation vehicle platform and kind of the rough timeline on it. I might make a more dedicated video on it in the future, but I kind of wanted to wait. I almost made one this morning and then decided, you know what? If Tesla makes some kind of announcement, it's very unlikely. But if they do some kind of timeline update or give us some more concrete information on the next gen vehicle platform, I'd rather wait for the earnings call before making an official video on it and everything. But yeah, only 3 minutes away before the shareholder deck drops. They should detail the launch about the refreshed Model 3, as well as the launch of the Cybertruck, maybe what probably not too much differences on the production estimates of it, but good. Go on a hike, Mike. That sounds like fun. Hopefully you have better weather than we do. Oh my God, I'm so sick of this weather. It's been way too much rain here. Good morning, Mart. Yes, and hummus yummus. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, for those who don't know, usually right at 1 p.m. when the market closes is when Tesla drops the shareholder deck, which is when we get the official earnings numbers. And I don't have access to something you don't. It's just ir.tesla.com. Oh, they updated the background image of it. That's cool. So actually, why don't I just keep it this way? I'll put it behind me here like that. There we go. If anything, I might move the camera a little bit so I'm not covering so much. There we go. Something like that. Um, that way you guys can see what I see. So we already know the production and delivery numbers. They posted that earlier in the month, and they're still being quite vague about it. So this used to be the Tesla Semi picture. Now it's the Cybertruck picture, which is kind of cool. Or it was Giga Texas for a while, but the shareholder deck is where the actual numbers are published. Gee, sorry, the numbers are all over the place. Let me see if I can close some background stuff. That might help. And a lot of people highlight kind of the biggest updates off to the side. Oh, you know what I should do? Did we get an update? Why is there a blue icon on the Tesla? I might just bring up the chat on my car so I can read it that way. Um, since the screen is going to be occupied by Tesla news here in a couple minutes, I just have to switch the accounts so I know what the heck you guys are saying. Um, but yeah, I'm predicting the margins are probably going to go down again just because we know there's been some more price cuts and we know the Model 3 factory line was down for a time, so there's usually a dip in margins whenever that goes on. Would not be surprised. Um, Jeez. Sorry, I know it's so pixelated. Oh, and the thumbnail didn't update either. That's nice. Jeez. Why didn't the thumbnail? Oh, there it goes. I just want the chat. Is that so hard? Oh, I know what I need to do. Never mind. I need to go to YouTube Studio, which you can do on Tesla Theater, and that gives you the live view of the control room. Why don't I pause this to free up some bandwidth? I know, it's really pixelated. I know. Just give it a second. It just needs to stabilize while I'm pulling up new stuff. Maybe Safari is not the answer. Maybe I need to do Chrome or something. Sorry, guys. What was I thinking? Using Chrome. Okay. I'm on the wrong channel here. Oh no, this doesn't need to be chat. It just needs to be investor relations. There we go. Live stream chat. I'll put on my Tesla display. I can't do this in a Rivian. Um, is Tesla having an earnings call today? Yes. Today's the earnings report for Q4 of 2023, so they should probably recap kind of everything that went on in 2023 And if there is any kind of guidance that they want to provide for 2024, they've gotten more vague on the guidance because I don't think they really can hit the 50% growth target anymore. But in the past, they've said that they expect, 1.8 million production guidance, or maybe this year it'll be 2.2 million or something like that. I'd love to see some comments on BYD surpassing them in full EV sales. It's kind of like the beauty of competition, right? We want to have companies competing with each other so that they feel an urgency, a rush to kind of top the other. I hope BYD had an effect on Project Redwood, which is this compact crossover concept, and we're trying to figure out where that's going to be built, and maybe they'll provide some more guidance on that today. But the shareholder deck should drop any second now. I'm refreshing. Yeah, I think Safari was actually the problem. It seems like the bitrate is much better now. Um, so let me pause this because I don't need that. Yeah. Mike says, I'm so stoked that I didn't screw up the sodium ion battery build. Now that I've verified it works, I'm buying the rest of the electric skateboard. That was so cool. I'm glad to see that that was working. Um, Greetings, fellow YouTubers. Our weather is trash, is hovering around freezing and pouring rain. Well, at least it's not freezing here. I'm grateful for that. Sheesh. Come on. Shareholder deck, you can do it. Okay. Bitrate is still bad, so I'm closing Twitter. Any second now, I'm refreshing. It's the 24th. Come on. Are we on Elon time today, Tesla? Let's see it. Okay. I'll go easy on the refreshing. Any second. You're about Rivian's R2 platform unveil happening on March 7th. Well, I couldn't get an official word. I mean, I saw some registry for an event go on, and then someone said Rivian repealed the request. So I'm still not sure if that's officially confirmed, but it wouldn't surprise me because they did say they plan on unveiling the R2 in somewhat early 2024, and March is pushing it for early. But yeah, I do want to do a video on that, or we can talk more about that today. Jeez, taking their time. 3 minutes in. Usually it doesn't take 3 minutes. We need to close the. I'll close the window. Come on. Still not there. Weird. Huh. Man, it's been internet's been spotty lately. I apologize. I don't know why it's so pixelated. It'll be fine for a few seconds and then it'll die again. And I'm just like, come on. Maybe it'll help if I switch to wired so that the camera's connected directly to the phone. Let's see if that helps. Instead of going over Wi-Fi. Also, this is why I should get premium connectivity on my car so that I could stream without touching the Wi-Fi. Still, man, I feel like investor relations usually doesn't take this long. I hope they have a truck variant like the R1 platform. I'd be stoked for a small form factor pickup using LFP batteries. Well, yeah, the R1 is supposed to be using LFP batteries pretty soon here. If not this year, definitely next year. They said that the standard range battery on the R1 will be LFP. They're already using LFP on the delivery vehicles. So Rivian definitely already has suppliers in place for them. Oh, it's up, it's up, it's up. Here we go. We're downloading the update. Okay, best-selling vehicle in the world, energy to storage deployment of 14.7 gigawatt hours. Great Scott! Operating cash flow of 4.4 billion, free cash flow of 2.1 billion. Jeez. That seems strong to me. Obviously not the strongest. Total gap margin. Okay, just a little bit less than before. 17.6% gross margin. Slightly less than Q3, but very close, honestly. Total gross profit was actually a bit higher, so spending was higher, but 15.7% EBITDA, 8.2% operating margin. Yeah, Tesla's gonna be fine. I'm not worried about it. Let's see. Operating income decreased to 2.1 billion, resulting in 8.2% operating margin. Reduced vehicle average selling price due to pricing and mix. That's a weird way to phrase it. We reduced the price because of the price. Lower full self-driving revenue recognition year over year due to FSD beta wide release. Oh, so that's almost like Tesla acknowledging that FSD hasn't done much. Oops, sorry. Cost of Cybertruck production ramp. Yeah, we kind of knew that would be expensive. They just keep saying lower cost of vehicle, but they don't say why. Um, okay, I don't see any changes here. Tesla semis in pilot production. Um, to be determined. Roadster. Yeah, I was hoping for more Roadster news based on Matthew DR's claims. Before Tesla purchased the Fremont factory, the record output of the previous owner was nearly 430,000 vehicles made in a single year. Tesla Fremont factory produced nearly 560,000 vehicles thanks to our 20,000 Fremont-based employees. Giga Texas, we began production of the Cybertruck and delivered the first units to customers. We expect the ramp of the Cybertruck to be longer than other models given its manufacturing complexity. Hey, what did I tell you? I kept telling people that. It's not going to ramp the same way the Model Y ramps. Uh, what you think about Ford stop producing electric cars and going for hybrid and gasoline cars? So my live stream from 2 streams ago dives more into this. This is kind of the latest news, so I'm going to cover this first, and then we can talk more about that. Um, services and other gross profit. Wow. Record profit recognition. Part sales, used vehicle sales, merchandise sales, and pay-per-use supercharging. I'm betting it's mostly supercharging. They're charging a lot for that. Cybertruck production and deliveries will ramp throughout this year. In addition, we continue to make progress on the next. Oh, sorry, I should switch this so you guys can see everything. There you go. On our next gen vehicle platform, let's see if we got any new pictures. There's the refresh. There's the Y. There's some happy employees, and the delivery event. I think that's new. I haven't seen that photo yet. That looks sweet. Cybertruck production line, Megapack production line. Ooh, the wrapping service. Oh, that's cool. Beautiful. It's a nice light blue. Then we got Franz's matte black wrap. Yeah, spike in net income. Whoa. Why is that so high? What happened there? Is just services? Huh. Yeah, it's their highest net income. They're reporting that. Huh. Yeah, no like game-changing new photos or anything, but not much progress on Giga Mexico either. That's kind of a up in the air question. Um, anything else I'm concerned about battery production? I'm not as concerned about battery production as I am the quality of the batteries because the charging curve on the Cybertruck does not look all that great. I'm hoping that that's because they're splitting the pack into 2 separate packs, so we're getting skewed numbers, and maybe it will be better once V4 superchargers are out, but that's still hypothetical. We have sufficient liquidity to fund our product roadmap, long-term capacity expansion plans, and other expenses. We will manage the business such that we maintain a strong balance sheet during this uncertain period. Company is currently between 2 major growth waves. The first one began with the global expansion of the Model 3Y platform, even though those 2 cars are built very, very differently. And the next one we believe will be initiated by the global expansion of the next generation vehicle platform. 2024, our vehicle volume growth rate may be notably lower than the growth rate achieved in 2023 as our teams work on the launch of the next generation vehicle at Giga Texas. Okay. Elon actually said something that might be true. We might be able to trust Elon because Tesla's saying right here, um, they plan on launching the next generation vehicle at Giga Texas, but 2024 is going to be mainly just preparation for that. They don't expect Cybertruck to ramp that fast. The growth rate of deployments and revenue of our energy storage business should outpace the automotive business. Wow. Solar deployments declined. Downward pressure on solar demand continued into Q4 as interest rates have remained high. Interesting. It's all about the interest rates. That's always what Tesla says, right? Isn't there usually a figure showing automotive margins compared to other manufacturers? Did they drop that? Probably because I'm guessing it doesn't look so good as it used to. I mean, we have market share of Tesla vehicles by region. You can see they're kind of tapering off now. Um, but yeah, no update to the Cybertruck production numbers. Makes sense. It's too early. But also Giga Texas is still listed at over 250,000, but not as high as Model Y in Berlin. But man, Shanghai crushing it still. Uh, it's interesting that they explicitly state that Cybertruck will take longer to ramp because of its complexity. Production of the updated Model 3 ramped to full speed in less than 2 months. Nice. Good job, Giga Shanghai. Production Berlin continue to grow, achieving both a record. Yeah, they're not mentioning the demand here. I think there's been quite a big drop off in demand for Model Y in Berlin. There's just a lot of what do you call it? Brand loyalty in Germany. People don't want to buy from an American company, even if it's good. Um, hey, Mercy, thank you for 29 months of support. Very kind of you. He says the wrap Cybertruck looks so clean. Yes, it does. I agree. Um, so Giga Texas, the refreshed Model 3 with significantly quieter cabin, um, ventilated seats, a screen for rear seats, longer range, and many other improvements is now available globally. So finally acknowledging Highland. So year over year, total production went up 35%. Definitely not the 50 it used to be, but each time you grow, it gets harder and harder to expand past, 50% growth. But still, quite an accomplishment. Over 1.8 million vehicles delivered. That's amazing. So I still say quite the achievement. Good job, Tesla. Um, but yeah, nothing too shocking here. So we've got a little while before the call officially begins and they answer questions and stuff. Personally, I don't think anything on the call is going to be that informative. Um, Everybody's going to want them to comment on future products, and they'll say what they always say, which is we can't comment on future products. But of course, that's what everybody's most excited for because that's what Tesla keeps pushing. They're like, we're in between growth phases, so our production and our demand is tapering off a little bit, but it's because the next big growth phase is our next generation vehicle platform. So Cybertruck is not going to put much of a dent in that growth target, it seems. What are they saying about full self-driving here? It says, in late December, we started rolling out V12 of FSD beta. Must be to, as they say right here, active driver supervision required. Does not make the vehicle autonomous. Wow. Right in your face. Trained on the data from a fleet of over 1 million vehicles, this system uses AI to influence vehicle controls. Um, Oh, I highlighted it on accident. Steering wheel, pedals, indicators. Instead of hard coding every driving behavior, V12 makes a new era in the path to full autonomy. I do think that V12 is kind of like a last hope in a way, because it seems to be like fundamentally rewriting everything that V11 stood for. So basically, my point is if they reach another local maximum in V12, I don't know what else they can do. I don't know what are they going to say? We're going to come up with super duper neural nets that are even more autonomous. We replaced hundreds of thousands of lines of code with V12. What are you going to do if you need V13 to fundamentally rewrite everything, right? Um, in 30 minutes, I've gone from how bad can FSD and Smart Summon actually be to who the hell thinks this is worth 12 grand? Thank you, Dylan. So Dylan and I were talking in an earlier live stream today, and he was saying he was going to try out FSD for the first time. And Dylan's coming to the same conclusion I've come to every time I try out FSD, which is why the heck is Tesla acting like they're close to level 4, level 5? I don't know. I've seen some good things about V12, but I also saw some good things about V11. I've still seen disengagements and complaints about V12. I still think it's a disappointment, basically, because Elon overhyped it as he overhypes everything. We can switch camera feeds here. We can look at the numbers together. Um, I quickly saw people saying that V12 does not do good on highways, especially in the rain. It was doing okay on city street driving, but my biggest annoyance was Elon said version 12 won't be beta. He said version 12 is just full self-driving. There will be no need to use the term beta anymore. And now, of course, they're calling it version 12 beta. um, Add more sensors, I guess, if it doesn't work. That's not a cheap solution because you've already promised everybody who's paid for full self-driving that their cars have all of the hardware necessary. They don't need retrofits for hardware 4. Tesla's doubled down on that and promised that everybody with hardware 3 that's paid for full self-driving can get it. So if you claim, if you say that actually in order to achieve full self-driving, we need um, better sensors or more sensors for it to work, then that means you have to offer for free camera or sensor retrofits to everybody who's paid for full self-driving at no additional charge, which is going to be a huge nightmare. So I don't even think Tesla's going to consider that a possibility. 0.71 earnings per share versus 0.74 estimated. Is that all people care about? Earnings per share? I guess that's all that matters. Yeah, I figured that because of the Model 3 factory shutdowns and the Cybertruck ramp that the margins weren't going to be as good this quarter. That wasn't a surprise to me. And of course, we've kind of ramped up, not to full capacity, but as much as we can, Texas and Berlin, before starting to hit kind of demand slumps, which I don't think the interest rates are purely um, the reason, but I do think they have an effect. I think, like anything, there's not just one sole reason for any of this. And there's a good chance that the interest rates do have an effect on what people are willing to pay for a vehicle. But I also do think that Tesla, kind of like how we talked about with Rivian Mike on our last live stream, Tesla is kind of running into their barrier of demand for early adopters. Like, there's only so many people who are willing to put up with learning a new thing or learning how to manage an EV, and we're running into more people that can't charge from home or don't want to learn how to precondition batteries or understand charging curves. Um, Hope the market overreacts so I can scoop up some stock at a discount. I don't know, man. I'm not I'm not buying more Tesla stock right now, but I'm not well, I should put it this way. I'm not selling. I've never sold a single share of Tesla. Even Gowley from Hyperchange can't say that. He had to sell Tesla shares to buy his Tesla. I value Tesla stock more than him because I didn't sell shares to buy my car. I just hoarded cash. No, he's still way more of the hyperbole than me. But the more and more time that goes by, the more I'm realizing that so much of Tesla's valuation is so high because people are pricing in robo-taxi and FSD. And every day that goes by, I'm starting to think more and more that that's not going to happen. At least there's a bunch of limitations with the code itself, right? It'd be one thing if Tesla felt so confident in the code that they got rid of the nags. The tiniest bit of progress, in my opinion, would be if we got rid of the steering wheel nag. If we could just get rid of the steering wheel nag, I'd be like, okay, Tesla's assuming a little bit more responsibility. They feel confident enough in the system that they're saying we're not going to nag you as much. But they're not even doing that. They're getting more strict with the eye tracking, which is mostly from the NHTSA. But if the NHTSA is getting picky about hands on the wheel and eyes on the road, how the heck do you think you're going to push V12? Weren't there a bunch of people in my live streams um, telling me that version 12 wasn't going to nag? Was it Jacob? Jacob, are you out there? I want to know your opinion on this because there were several people, at least two or three people, telling me that when version 12 rolls out, there won't be nags anymore. The car will just, you'll have to sit there, but you won't have to keep your hands on the wheel. And I've seen videos of people using version 12. There's absolutely still a nag. It's still there. And I don't think Tesla is truly understanding how legally difficult it's going to be to roll this out. I think they're constantly underestimating the legality, the logistics. Um, I'm looking at it as robotaxis are much harder to be achieved than Tesla thinks. A lot of people be drinking that Kool-Aid. Yeah, I'm fine with my 15 Tesla stock. I don't really care that much what happens with it. I have other investments that are only going up, actually going up. That's good. I'm happy for you. Yeah, most of I should also disclose, most of my stock portfolio is not in Tesla, which hyperbulls would probably say the opposite. They would say most of my portfolio is in Tesla stock. For me, it's a pretty small, I mean, most of my portfolio is in like simple, reliable mutual funds, but they've done very well, like you said. So I'm happy. I'm not complaining. Tesla is the only like, well, that's not true. I did actually make some money on Ford stock. That's an automotive stock I have sold. I bought a bunch of shares of Ford when they were crashing, and then we sold them at, I think, one of their highest points in the last few years. And we made a decent profit on it. So I said, "Oh, I'm happy. I don't care." um, I'm trying to see from a 10 to 30 year time frame rather than a 2 to 5 year time frame. I know, me too, and I'm trying to say that. Like, I genuinely wonder if full self driving is like the next, how people used to look at flying cars. A lot of people back in the 80s or 90s used to think that flying cars were the future. And then the more time that went by, the more we started realizing, you know what? It's not logistically that complicated to build a vehicle that's highway capable that can fly, but the logistics of making a flying car work are just not practical. They're too noisy. They're not very efficient. You can't turn every driver into a pilot. It's just too complicated. So there's all kinds of logistics issues that came up later that made us realize, okay, flying cars aren't really going to work. Um, Even though for a long time that's what people were convinced the future was. And I'm wondering if that's what we're looking at now with full self-driving. We think that it's achievable. We think, oh, inevitably we're building driver assist features. Of course, within a few more years of improvement, it'll do everything by itself and it won't need a human supervisor. And I'm thinking, it might be there might be a lot more strings attached than people think. I'm feeling like not necessarily the Waymo approach is better, but it might be a lot more realistic in terms of like what you can actually roll out. See, if I'm gonna have this behind me, I might as well have some cool shots. Refresh Model 3, it looks beautiful. Love it. Um, I hope to check one out soon. Cybertruck also looks beautiful. Good job. Can I get rid of this? There we go. How's that? Yeah, that looks cool. Um, Even 10 to 30 years, I question whether or not this can really be profitable. Because I think the napkin math is basically just like, oh, well, it's level 5, so it just drives everywhere and makes you free money. And it's like, who's charging them? Who's cleaning them? Who's maintaining them? Who's permitting them? There's a bunch of states and cities that aren't going to allow them. There's a bunch of unions that are going to fight it, and it's going to be extremely easy to vandalize. And NHTSA has tons of rules when it comes to vehicles that are privately owned. So I'm very, very skeptical of putting level 4, level 5 autonomous driving software on personally owned vehicles. All of the existing robo-taxis in the world are not privately owned. They're typically owned by the company that has special permits from a city or a local government, and they get permits to operate within a city region on a per city basis. So basically, what it means is we might not, in my opinion, I don't think we're going to have this one moment where Tesla suddenly flips a switch, cracks the code. Okay, version 12 did it, or version 13 did it, whatever you want to call it. It has figured out level 5. It's so good now. It's perfect. It doesn't need human supervision. It's so safe. Suddenly we can now roll out robo taxis everywhere. I don't think it's that simple. I think legally there's so many individual governments you're going to have to work with, and it's going to be a very slow rollout, and it's probably only going to work with Tesla owned vehicles, just like how you can't buy a Waymo. Google owns Waymo, or Cruise autonomous vehicles were owned by GM before they were shut down, which I do think will affect the rollout. So all of that being priced into the stock and the fact that it might not happen in my head, like I'm feeling more and more pessimistic about it actually being delivered, the more I'm thinking Tesla stock, oh, it feels weird to say. Tesla stock might be overvalued. Be kind of hard to justify its valuation if most of its revenue simply comes from car sales and energy. I still think it's valuable. I still think it will be the most valuable automotive brand for sure, possibly the most valuable brand. But I wonder if it can justify that without Robotaxi. I still think it's a massively huge business. I'm not trying to convince you to sell your stock. I'm not selling my stock for sure. Um, I bought in at a much lower point, so I'm happy with the margins I've made so far. But again, I haven't sold, so I haven't actually made a cent. But I do think Tesla will. especially in North America, basically have a monopoly on charging. They basically are going to run all the charging networks. I mean, they're going to run the supercharger charging network, which is going to be the most reliable and the biggest charging network out of all of them. They basically invented NACS, which everybody switched to. They've got a huge lead on charging, and I do think they have the best driver assistance features in the industry. So if people care more and more, as you know, we have younger generations that care more about screens and autonomy, growing up and buying into newer technology, I still think most of the brand power Tesla has is going to win over a majority of buyers, because nothing else on the market comes close to what FSD beta can do. I just wish it wasn't called FSD. I saw someone on Twitter kind of explain it perfectly how I would like it personally. Um, can I change this to live chat? Energy. Oh man, my chat. Sorry, it's taking a while for my chat to update on here. That's weird. My apologies. I wasn't seeing all your messages. Energy will be huge. Absolutely. The demand for Megapack and Power Walls is basically infinite. It's just a debate on how many batteries can you possibly build. Um, V12 videos do look good so far, though. Eh, I I'd say it's still mixed results, and the fact that there was a nag after people told me there wouldn't be a nag is kind of funny. Um, you made money off people buying new gas cars. Exactly. FSD is Alexa still hasn't delivered what is originally promised. Tesla Energy is Amazon Web Services, not accounted for and will get more important. Yeah, I think Tesla Energy will be massive, and I think Tesla practically has a monopoly on it. I think that the interest rates probably do affect solar, but also the utility companies and how they handle energy buyback is going to affect solar. I think Megapack has a lot more potential because utility companies have somewhat infinite budgets because they're federally or state funded. They can spend a ton of money on energy backup projects to ensure that the grid remains stable. I'm not surprised that solar demand is dwindling, which Tesla said in this report, by the way. I'm not making that up. But at least according to Tesla, PG&E is a huge provider, electricity provider in California, which used to be, leader of solar deployments. But oh, it's up here. They've basically changed a lot of their metering rules so that you don't make that much by putting energy back into the grid, which means that in order for solar to really be cost effective, you kind of have to get a power wall, which increases the break even point because you have to spend more money. But I'm hoping that we can get some more freaking. I wish this would get talked about more because I honestly don't think it gets talked about more. We need more companies building lithium iron phosphate battery packs or sodium ion if that proves to be reliable. It's kind of too early to tell what the cycle life is, but the math on paper at least is looking good. Mike in the Woods is making sodium ion skateboards and stuff, but there's advantages to building batteries in the US with the point of sale tax credit, the $7,500 rebate. Um, there's a ton of cost saving advantages to lithium iron phosphate. You don't need nickel, you don't need cobalt. We have a ton of iron everywhere. It's one of the most abundant materials on earth. We have a lithium refinery that's just revving up now in Texas. Why aren't we building more LFP? Like if we built LFP, we could put higher cycle life batteries that are cheaper to build in the lower range Teslas like the rear wheel drive Model 3 and the rear wheel drive Model Y. The rear wheel drive Model 3 already has LFP. It just doesn't qualify for the tax rebate because it's an imported battery pack. If we could start getting more non-imported LFP cells, you could have cheaper cost of manufacturing, point of sale credit, higher cycle life. LFP is great. It's like, why aren't we funding this? Why do we keep building nickel based cells, right? Like, I get that the Cybertruck was late and we needed to get that out on the market. And okay, we've got that. But I think that needs to be the next focus is building LFP cells locally. And they can be prismatic. They don't have to be cylindrical. LFP full electric Maverick would be huge. Ford is using LFP batteries now, which is cool. Nobody's really talking about energy storage that much. Well, the deployments have gone up a bit, which is good. You can see here. Um, energy storage. Oh, I guess They have that. They say in gigawatt hours they went up, but sequentially in Q4 to 3.2 gigawatt hours for a total deployment of 14.7 gigawatt hours in 2023. While we expect deployments will continue to be volatile on a sequential basis, impacted by logistics and global distribution to projects at any given time, we expect continued growth on trailing 12-month basis going forward. We continue to ramp our 40 gigawatt hour mega factory in Lathrop, California, towards full capacity. Yeah, the rates from PG&E have made solar hard to justify for a lot of people. Um, and I think there's like my uncle is a good example. He bought solar and he lives in San Diego area, and they've started changing the utility prices there so that what you pay for electricity is based on your income, because so many people were buying solar. The utility companies start figuring out that, okay, hold on a second, we have this huge grid we have to maintain, but none of the customers want to pay for electricity anymore because they're all buying solar panels. So they're constantly iterating on the rates and the programs so that they still have some kind of funding coming in, and that kind of turns people away from wanting to buy solar because, the technology of solar is cool and I'm in favor of it, and I want utility companies and governments to be supporting more renewable energy, preferably nuclear. If we can get that, that's amazing. And not funded enough, not talked about enough. But um, yeah, solar as an investment, like trying to break even on a solar investment now, if you haven't bought them yet and you have to abide by the new metering terms, it's getting harder and harder to justify. Isn't solar pretty cheap nowadays? It is, but it doesn't pay for itself like it used to, because if you don't have batteries, then you're still using energy when the sun goes down, and the excess energy you produce, if you can't store it, goes back into the grid, and the utility company will take it from you basically for dirt cheap now. They won't pay you a premium. They won't give you a bunch of credits for overproduction. Um, let's see. Can we just get freaking basic autopilot on the Cybertruck? Yeah. I know, isn't that funny? I think there's so much assumptions made with full self-driving. Everybody just thinks it's so plug and play. Everybody just assumes, oh yeah, you just take it and you put it on another vehicle. You just take everything from FSD that we've learned, put it on the semi truck, or put it on the Tesla Cybertruck, or put it on a tiny little pod car in the future. And it's just like, it ain't that simple. They can't even get basic autopilot working on the Cybertruck, which seems like a fairly simple line of code, right? It's just staying between the lines. It's not some complex neural net, but because the Cybertruck has a different suite of cameras and a different dimensions to work with, it doesn't even do autopilot. Um, I've been waiting on FSD almost 42 years, since 1982 when the Night Industries 2000 rolled out. Yeah, my dad loves bringing that up. He's like, they've been trying to do self-driving cars since the 80s. This is a very long-term project. Tesla's probably the closest, but um, Freak Waka says, I think companies will continue to work on FSD-ish tech and it will get better, but I don't think it will ever get to the point where you get the car into the desert and it will drive you out of it. Yeah, I think there's actually more government issues with privately owned autonomous vehicles. I could see city permitted, geofenced, basically what we already have. We have Waymo in Chandler, Arizona, and we have it in San Francisco, where during certain times of the day, when there's good weather, you can have vehicles owned by a big tech company that are probably being supervised by humans and ready to take over in an emergency, but there's technically no one in the driver's seat and it can drive within city limits. And, I think if Tesla had their own private fleet of vehicles that was running a special beta version of FSD that, didn't require the nagging and didn't require a person in the driver's seat, they could probably get close to what Waymo's doing right now, and just drive around San Francisco. But my point is, even though they could do that, and Tesla could say, okay, we delivered the robo-taxi, it's out, we've done it, it's existing. People said he couldn't do it. People said he was wrong. Yeah, but it's a very, very different version of what was promised. A lot of people had this assumption, including Elon and Tesla, that once you could make a autonomous vehicle to drive people around, that would just bring in trillions or hundreds of billions in revenue, because think of all the cars flooded across the country. You'd have millions and millions of robo-taxis to drive around people for free or for very cheap, and Tesla takes a cut. Um, Whereas if you just have a fleet of, say, 50 to 100 robo-taxis in the San Francisco area, that's not going to make anywhere near as much money as people thought it was going to make. And then if it turns out to be very difficult to scale that to other cities and other places, then it's like, yeah, okay, they kind of did robo-taxi, but not in the way they were hoping. Um, just announced production to the new Model 3 ramped in Shanghai to full speed less than 2 months. Yeah, we read that earlier. I saw that. That's great. Um, yeah, they talk a little bit about it here. We released our latest FSD beta software to select employees and more recently to customers. V12 utilizes end-to-end training, enhancing the driving experience. We also introduced the second generation of the Optimus robot. Oh boy, another can of worms, which uses Tesla-designed actuators and sensors and improved AI capabilities. Both FSD Beta and Optimus are trained with similar technology pillars, real-world data, neural net training, and cutting-edge hardware and software. I'm sure it's the best of the best. I believe that if robotaxis are possible, Tesla's the company that's going to make it happen. I genuinely don't think anyone else is closer. And I mean that. That's why I own Tesla stock and not Google stock and not um who else is doing it? GM. I don't own any GM stock. Uh I don't have BYD stock or anything like that, but I'm not convinced it's possible. Will they announce Model 3 performance, do you think? I think now would have been the time to do it. I think they would have announced it in the shareholder deck if they did announce it, but I don't see it. It's not hard to beat PG&E unless it's in scumminess. That's what happens when you don't have competition. Features are cost dependent. How much money are you willing to pay for FSD or lower level driver assist? Me personally? Oh, I don't want to pay anything for it. I have friends that have it and I've experienced it and I'm not impressed by it, and it's like a cool science project to me. Like, it's fun to see what it does, but for daily driving, I don't think I would use it. Especially if someone else is in the car. Maybe I'd use it more if I was by myself, but it makes people uncomfortable. Didn't take long. We had a great time meeting some viewers of the channel, who've they've asked me not to say their names. I was about to say their names, and then I was like, no, Drew. They wanted to be private. They didn't want me to post their faces on social media or anything. But when we were out in Colorado and we checked out the Model S and the Cybertruck, we met some viewers and we hung out with them, and they had full self-driving in their Model X, and we got in their Model X and he tried it out. Didn't take long. Within 2 seconds, it did this crazy hard brake, and then it was supposed to go straight at the intersection, but it got in the right turning lane, so he had to take over. And I was like, okay, it's been 5 minutes and I already feel like we're about to die 3 times. And I was like, for this to actually be comfortable, for me to actually want to use it, it needs to go, hours and hours between interventions. And I think the main thing I've learned from experiencing full self-driving myself through my friends' cars and others' videos and stuff is that there's a lot of ways for you to drive legally and still be uncomfortable. That's my biggest takeaway from FSD in comparison to, you can watch videos about it and then you can experience it. And to me, that was the biggest difference. Is that I'd watch videos and say, hey, that looks pretty cool. It can do that. And then I would experience it and go, wow, I feel so uncomfortable. I did not realize how picky I am of a passenger. Like, I didn't realize how much I appreciate more gentle acceleration and deceleration and more awareness of surroundings. I didn't realize how big of an impact that really was. Sorry, I know the bit rate of the live stream is like this. I'll probably catch a ride in Waymo soon when they expand into South Bay. Very exciting. It's cool stuff. I'm all in favor of trying to make cars safer, and I do think it's a very noble field to go after. For the record, I'm not trying to say that Tesla should not pursue self-driving technology. I think everybody should be doing it in some way, shape, or form. Um, I just think that the expectations need to be put in check, because Tesla's done some amazing things, but the problem is the promises, the promises. They just keep promising way too much. We delivered the Cybertruck with an all-new user interface and new communication bus, Etherloop. That efficiency moves data while significantly reducing wiring as part of our holiday update when parking. Tesla vehicles without ultrasonic sensors display a high-fidelity 3D rendering which is funny because they have the exact same cameras of the cars with ultrasonic sensors. So I don't know why they left us out. It must be because they think the old park assist using sonar was better. Wireless Bluetooth headphones can now be paired with the rear screen while watching shows or playing games. Yada, yada, yada. Cost of goods sold per vehicle. This is actually kind of cool. I didn't look close enough on this chart here. Cost of goods sold. So it's getting cheaper and cheaper to produce cars, which I think is an important detail to note, which is like, okay, yeah, the prices of cars are decreasing, well, my margins, but at the same time, it's getting easier to build these things. It's dropping to almost $36,000 on average per car. Um, we're using Waymo like mad in Phoenix. It doesn't surprise me. I've seen the roads there. It's very simple, and Phoenix doesn't get a lot of bad weather, so they picked a good place for robo taxis. Um, let's see. I think I want Dylan White says, I think I want my $200 back. That's exactly how I felt. My wife has said that on multiple occasions. She was like, I'm so mad we paid for full self-driving that one month. She regrets it. We were disappointed by the performance, and um every time we try FSD beta in someone else's car, we're never that impressed. It's always cool for about 5 minutes, and then it does something horrible. And then we're like, wow, this is definitely not ready. The vision system, it's still not perfect, so they probably want to iron out the bugs first. Well, they've been ironing out the bugs for about 8 years, so um, my point is, what happens if we're ironing out bugs for 30 years? FSD will always be beta. Technically, autopilot is still in beta. I don't know if you guys know that, but if you go into the Tesla settings and go to auto steer, they still put beta on everything, which is why I did not believe Elon when he said version 12 won't be beta. I was like, I don't think he knows what that means. Sounds like FSD should under promise and over deliver, not the opposite. Not just FSD, everything with Tesla. That's the overarching problem, I think, is you give so many Tesla critics, people that hate Tesla or short Tesla stock, you give them so much to work with, Elon, because you keep over-promising things. If you keep over-promising things, people will continue to doubt everything you say because you have a track record of not living up to your promises. If you under-promised and over-delivered, I think there'd be a lot less complaining to go about. I saw someone on Twitter, this is what I was going to say earlier, someone on Twitter restructured the whole driver assist software package, autopilot, enhanced autopilot, and FSD in a much more simple way that I preferred the terminology of. I literally think, um, that term full self driving is part of the reason so many people are mad or confused, is because you're literally telling people, and you're giving the media a lot of ways to misunderstand the public. Tesla with full self-driving capability crashed. It's very, very easy for people to work around the term FSD into meaning whatever they want, because it definitely sounds bad when there's a car crash and the car has full self-driving. Now, we know, because we're nerds and we follow Tesla closely, that it's not a level 4 system and that you have to keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road, but we're nerds, so we know that kind of thing. The general public isn't going to know that kind of thing. They just hear the full self-driving package. It was like that movie, that Netflix movie with Julia Roberts, where all the Model 3s are on the freeway crashing into each other. It was a terrible movie. I watched it last week at a friend's house. Oh, it was so disappointing. But we were laughing so hard at that scene because all the cars are crashing into each other. And they're like, what's going on? Why are all these cars crashing? And they look at the Monroney sticker and it says full self-driving capability. And they're like, oh no, the robo-taxis are crashing. And it's like, that's not how that works. But there's enough people watching this to believe that kind of thing is real, that it's able to be put in a movie unironically. um it's just bad marketing, end of story. Yeah, I agree, but the guy on Twitter restructured it so that all Teslas by default have Tesla Vision. They already use that term, which is why it's a perfect term. Tesla Vision is the cameras doing stuff, the cameras, auto braking, adaptive cruise control, auto steer, and autopilot. Those are all features of Tesla Vision, which is just Tesla's full self-driving computer analyzing the vision that is collected by the 8 cameras, right? So Tesla Vision is free, and then we rebrand enhanced autopilot into Tesla Vision Plus. So Tesla Vision Plus gives you summon, smart summon, navigate on autopilot, auto lane change. So you get a little bit more out of it, right? So it enhances the capability of the vision-based system. And then if you want the turning on city streets and you want the stoplight and stop sign detection and you want the well, actually, I think the car should stop automatically at stop signs and stoplights for free because that's a safety thing. But it can continue at stop signs and stoplights with Tesla Vision Pro. That can be the fully unlocked version. And we get rid of this whole FSD nonsense. We stop calling it that. But if there were just different software packages like Tesla Vision Plus and Tesla Vision Pro, keep the prices the same if you want, or lower them if you think it'll increase the take rate. Um, but that's true. Without ultrasonic sensors, cars still don't have summon or smarts. That's still a problem. Yeah, this is honestly making me want to get enhanced autopilot just so I can flex on everybody that my car still does that. I actually had one of the last cars made with ultrasonic sensors. My car was built in August of 2022, and then they removed ultrasonics, I think in September. Very end of September, they got rid of ultrasonic sensors. Yeah, it sounds like Apple Vision Pro, I know, but still. Tesla already uses the term Tesla Vision, so it's not a completely out there concept. But if you're at the configurator and you just said all Teslas come with Tesla Vision, if you want a little bit more, you get Tesla Vision Plus. If you want every autonomous feature we have, get Tesla Vision Pro. I prefer that terminology way better than the full self-driving crap. Don't call it FSD because that's not what it is. I also wouldn't call my Model 3 a Cybertruck because that's not what it is. Tesla's naming it what they want it to eventually be, but when you're this late, it just doesn't make sense. Radar and cameras were a perfect marriage, and now Tesla can't figure out the camera only narrative. Well, even with radar, they weren't achieving full self driving. But you're right, radar did have better capabilities. You could decrease your following distance. You could set autopilot to go up to, I think with radar it went up to 90 miles an hour. But now they've put HD radar in the Model S and X. It's not the same radar as before, but there were a few times in the past where Elon commented that high definition radar could be better, or could have a place. I think that was on the last earnings call or something. There were people asking if Tesla would consider like what's going on with radar because they had heard that Model S and X were getting radar back. And Elon was like, no, 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 which I thought sounded bad because it proved that Tesla doesn't know what hardware they need. I thought that made me more skeptical of full self driving because Elon basically said on the earnings call that we're just putting in HD radar on the Model S and X as an experiment. That was his wording. He said it's just a little side project to figure out if radar is worth it. And I was like, you've been telling us that you can achieve full self-driving with the current hardware for 6, 7 years. 6 or 7 years you've been promising that, and you just told us at the end of 2023 that you're still trying to figure out what hardware is necessary. You're debating if you need radar or not. That's not a good look. What happens if you discover you need radar? That means every car you built that has the full self-driving package over the past 4 years, or however long, they removed radar a long time ago. I want to say it was about 4 years ago. Now you have to retrofit an HD radar on every single one of those cars that paid for FSD. It's not a good look. It did not sound good to me for Tesla to be like, oh, well, we're trying to figure out if we need radar or not, but we're gonna figure this out. It's like, oh my god. Ugh. Call it Tesla Vision for nerds so we can use it correctly. I think it would just simplify so much of the media misunderstanding, and also just be simpler to say Tesla Vision Pro instead of Tesla Full Self Driving Beta version 12. you know, here's just Tesla Vision Pro 1.0. That's what they should launch this year. Tesla Vision Pro 1.0. And then every point after that, 1.1, 1.2, they're all iterations within that year. And then when 2025 comes, you can call it Tesla Vision Pro 2.0, and then 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. Instead of this whole 2024.264.40.334. It's just such a mess. I know Tesla doesn't have a marketing department, and it shows because if they did, there would be much better naming and much less overpromising. Honestly, the Cybertruck, can we talk about the Cybertruck again for a second? I know people are disappointed by it. This is an amazing vehicle. I don't want to diminish the accomplishment that it is. Like, it's so eye-catching. It's a brand in itself. It doesn't have any Tesla logos on it. It turns so many heads. So many people who see it love it, fall in love with the design. I know online people hate it, but every time I see videos of people doing Cybertruck content in person, everybody just loves it. I've never seen someone go up to it and say, "Hey, I think that looks really ugly." Everybody just wants to check it out in person. It's CGI in real life. I totally agree with how Tesla worded it. It's such a unique, rare design. I don't think we're ever going to get such a drastic new redesign again. But the only reason it's a big disappointment to so many people is because of overpromising, is because of that keynote, that presentation way back in 2019. If we just deleted that presentation from history, let's squash the talk about $70,000 for 500 plus miles of range. Let's stop acknowledging that they mentioned a $40,000 starting price. If we just deleted that moment from Tesla's history, and let's just say they kind of did what Honda did with the Honda Saloon, which I think is really cool. That super aerodynamic sedan. I hope that makes something like it makes it to production. I know that exact vehicle won't make it into production, but they said they want to do a production run somewhat like the Honda Saloon. Um, Model the exterior, not the interior. The interior looks stupid. But what if Tesla just unveiled the Cybertruck design and that was it at the event? You could take deposits, sure, who cares? But just show off the look and just talk about some of the capability. Like if we just said, it's steel, it's durable, it's fast, it'll charge quick, it'll have state of the art technology, and we can mass produce it, you know, here's our truck and here's the dimensions and here's what it unlocks. But they didn't talk about the price and they didn't talk about the range, and they didn't promise 6 seats or, the tailgate ramp or any of that stuff. If they would have just unveiled it and then we finally got the specs at the delivery event with the range and the price and everything, um, I don't think people would be as disappointed. I don't think the narrative around the Cybertruck would be so negative. The biggest problem with the Cybertruck was the unveiling. It's like compared to other electric trucks, sure, it's not crazy better range. The problem was everyone following the Cybertruck had this unrealistic expectation that it was going to blow any other truck out of the water. Everyone was convinced because of that stupid presentation where they break the glass and everything. That stupid presentation convinced everyone that this Cybertruck was going to be cheaper than everybody else and have twice the range as any other truck and do all these crazy things that they didn't know how to make. They didn't know how they were going to make it happen. Elon just had this crazy laundry list of ideas that said, "You guys got to do this, this, and this, and I wanted to be bulletproof, and I wanted to do this, and you got to make it happen, and you got to build a prototype in 90 days." That's what Lars said in the interviews with Lars and Franz about the Cybertruck development. Lars, the Tesla's head of engineering, basically straight up said, Elon gave us 90 days to build a prototype to do all these crazy things, and we were not prepared, and we didn't know how we were going to do it. He straight up said these things. And I was like, imagine if there wasn't all of this pressure, and all of these over promises. Maybe it wouldn't have been as exciting. Maybe the engineering team needs that pressure, but I don't know. There's got to be a way to do that privately, especially when you miss so many things anyway. Um, People say like, "Well, you made a much better vehicle than you would have otherwise," but they still they still miss things anyway. But if we would have canceled that unveiling from history, this is an amazing truck. 11,000 pounds of towing capacity, big bed, big frunk, steer by wire, no paint, just steel on the outside. 48-volt architecture, 123 kilowatt hours stretching with the right tires to like 340 miles estimated by the EPA. Like, I think the Cybertruck is very expensive right now because it's in limited production, so they're only able to build so many. So to differentiate between who can buy one, they had to put the prices high. That's just what Tesla does. They've done it with everything. Anytime supply is low and demand is high, um, they price it very high. But once we get through the foundation series and they start opening up to the tax credit, that'll make the all-wheel drive Cybertruck like $72,000 instead of $100,000 like it is now. And I think they can go lower personally. Tesla's so good at margins, at finding ways of cutting costs, and the teardowns and everything I've seen surrounding the Cybertruck manufacturing line. it looks so much cheaper to build than a Rivian or a Lightning. So I personally think Tesla could probably lower even the all-wheel drive Cybertruck. I think another $10,000 or $15,000 with the right scaling. Of course, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time to ramp up 4680 cells, ramp up the drivetrain production and all that. But I honestly wish they would have scrapped the tri-motor. I don't see the point in the Cyber Beast. It looks good on paper, but it's pretty much a worse truck in every way except 0 to 60, which I don't find very important, especially for a pickup truck. Everybody in Germany complains about the speed being limited in autopilot. They just wanted to get rid of the radar to save cost, not because it's unnecessary. I think it's not one or the other. There is, I think, a fairly good argument to be made that if the radar and the cameras disagree, you have to pick one. And there was a lot of phantom braking issues with radar. There's still phantom braking issues with cameras, but we can't say that radar solved the phantom braking because it didn't. And the radar they were using in Teslas was not very high fidelity. So maybe HD radar could be more useful. We'll find out. But um, if you're building a vision based driver assistance system, you have to rely on vision. You have to be able to interpret your surroundings. You can't just purely go on object detected, because cameras are going to be able to tell the difference between, a grocery bag in the street and a semi truck, whereas radar doesn't know the difference. to ra- to radar, snow on the street or some leaves could be the equivalent of a pickup truck in front of you. There's still phantom brakes, but my point is radar didn't get rid of them. Um, so if you're having phantom brakes on both, it's better to not have them, right? Because then you pay less. I think it's good that we have a company like Tesla that's willing to constantly be pushing the boundaries of how little they can put in the vehicle. Because, like I said before, Tesla's goal is to be kind of the McDonald's of EVs. And that's both a pro and a con. The pro of that is their focus is massive scale. Everything they build, they want to build at very, very high volume. That's why we don't have a Roadster yet. It's not high volume enough. But they're constantly looking at ways of cutting costs, taking things out so they can save more money, put that into the software or put that into the supercharger network. And I would argue the supercharger network, your charging infrastructure is arguably more important than the vehicle itself. Tesla being a great indication of that, because I concede and I admit Tesla does not have the best build quality. Other third party companies have better build quality, but people still choose to buy Teslas with the worst build quality because they would rather have poor build quality and a good charging infrastructure than good build quality and a poor charging infrastructure. That's kind of what we've seen with Ford, VW, Lucid, Rivian. You can have great build quality. Like having hung out in the Rivian R1S, that thing is built incredibly well. Just you can tell just by closing the door, just the fit and finish of everything. It's fantastic build quality. It's not perfect. I don't think any company has perfect build quality, but I'm willing to admit Teslas feel cheaper, but I know where the money's going. Tesla's not just pocketing that money. They're putting it towards something that is arguably more important, which is the charging infrastructure and making sure that wherever you drive, there is just a metric crap ton of superchargers to choose from, and they're reliable and they're working. And of course, I care more about software because I'm not interacting with the door build material all that much. I just get in and get out, but I do interact with the software a lot. So I appreciate a car that puts a big emphasis on the software. What EV maker has a better build quality at equivalent price and efficiency? Uh, well, we could argue about margins, but at the same price, I mean, probably anything almost. I mean, I see a lot of people driving around. No, they don't have. I mean, they have different build quality issues, but um, what was it? People really like the Mach E. I don't prefer the design of it, but the build of the Mach-E feels a lot more solid and stable. Um, ID4 as well, I've always had good impressions with, but I've heard bad things about ID4 software, but the build quality at least. Um, I think it's good that, people try different things. We can have the company that tries to put build quality before charging infrastructure, and then we can have a different company like Tesla that puts charging infrastructure and software before build quality. It's good to have variety. It's good to have different. You buy the company that caters to your preferences. Some of you might care more about build quality. Some of you might care more about software. That's fine. I'm totally in favor of everybody buying what fits their needs best. Um, Fremont apparently is pretty bad, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen bad build quality from Giga Texas too, though. It just depends. It's natural anytime you're mass producing something at extreme scale. It's very hard to build something reliably and consistently when you're ramping up production and changing paint colors all the time. And anything you build millions of, which they're building millions of Model Ys, it's very hard to make sure everything is really, really perfect. And I don't think anything really is. You'll find build quality issues on any car if you look hard enough. Mike says about the Cybertruck, it's mainly polarizing reactions you'll see online. Either they love it or hate it and post it on the internet. Otherwise, it's a lukewarm reaction with a photo on the wedge like a normal human. All the videos I've seen of people actually driving around the Cybertruck and meeting people in the wild, everybody loves it. Everybody wants to look at it. Like Jerry Rig Everything, who is not a Tesla fanboy by any means. If anything, some people say he's a Tesla critic. He's hard on Tesla. He made some videos with the Cybertruck, and so did Dan from What's Inside, who's also been pretty critical of the Cybertruck, but I would say he's much more of a Tesla fanboy. He buys Roadsters and has a bunch of Teslas and buys Tesla merch and all that. But every time they went somewhere, they were looking for reactions. You know, they would film people driving by it on the freeway, and they would go to superchargers, and everybody would come up and talk to them. Same thing with Zach from Our Cyber Life. They would get as many impressions and as many thoughts as they can. It always the Cybertruck always drew a crowd, and they always say, "What do you think? How do you like it? You know, thumbs up, thumbs down. Is it ugly or is it?" And everyone goes, "No, no, I love it. I love it." It's some maybe that's just bias because they're seeing it in person, but seems like in person at least everybody loves to see it. Look at the turnout it's generated. So many people want to go see it in person. Now they're doing that in China. They brought the Cybertruck out to China so people could react to it. Um, let's see. What EV makers? Oh, sorry. Most EV makers have terrible battery capacity to mileage and motor quality. They all use Tesla superchargers. Will they pay Tesla? Um, yeah, pretty much. But I mean, Tesla has to pay for the electricity and the upkeep of the charger, and that might make it more competitive to go towards other places. You know, Tesla's not the only company building DC fast chargers. However, they are building the most. So I think most likely Tesla will own the vast majority of charging structures, at least in the United States. Probably a different story in Asia and Europe. Um, Maki has far worse build than the Model Y. Didn't even need to get in one to know that. I've driven $60,000 Fords and the materials are $25,000 car quality. I don't know. I've driven both, and I've not been impressed by really any Model Y or Model 3 I've been in. It's always like, it's fine. Build quality is okay, but I hear build quality issues with any brand, but I'm not surprised that I've seen a lot more control arm issues with Model 3 and Y. Like there was a video a guy did. I know that Ford has had bad build quality in the past. I'm just saying I wouldn't base one one brand's reputation. That it doesn't mean that because a brand has a bad reputation for build quality that they can't build a vehicle with good build quality. Um, but I've been in the Mach-E. I thought it was very well constructed. And I've seen people who've owned both compare the two. And they're like in a parking lot and they're driving with their Model Y and they're moving the steering wheel back and forth and it's just going, it's making all this noise. And or they drive over kind of a bumpy road in their Model Y and it's like, and then they get in the Mach-E and it's just perfectly smooth. Yeah. It eats into their efficiency. It's usually not as efficient to have, you know, more noise isolation and that kind of thing. Um, But I think the difference is Tesla's lowered prices a lot in the last couple of years. A couple of years ago, you know, they were building $60,000, $70,000 Model Ys, and there were much cheaper cars that arguably had much better build quality. Yeah, control arm seems to be a consistent complaint with Teslas. I care about commuting and grocery getting. That's why I need a Ram for 1500. Monroe says no one else is close to a Tesla. Well, it depends what you're referring to, because Monroe also says that Tesla can't catch up to BYD. Anytime you ask Monroe who's going to be the biggest EV maker, he says BYD. So I don't know if you're talking about in terms of vehicle deliveries or margins or charging infrastructure, but I think a lot of Tesla bulls cherry pick Monroe statements. A lot of them, when he says something nice about Tesla, they say, "Oh, see, Monroe said this," but then they ignore everything else he says. I think Sandy Monroe's a pretty fair, objective guy, and he kind of calls it the way he sees it because he's seen a lot, and he can't really be bought. And he compliments Tesla a lot, but he also compliments other brands, and I don't think that it gets mentioned as often. Um, Must have bought a unicorn Model Y. Well, let me know in a few years because there's definitely going to be more build quality issues the longer you own it. I've seen that come up for sure. Um, One of my friends who's a bit of a vehicle snob said my Model Y has no fit and finish issues he could find. It always sounds like that in comments. I always see people write that in the comments, but any detailing channel I've ever seen can find a problem with a Tesla or any car, really. If you look hard enough, you'll find something. I've never seen a detailing channel look at a car and say, oh, there's absolutely nothing wrong or this car is perfect. There's always something. Tesla higher prices were more equivalent when you compare dealer markups on other EV makers. No, I agree. Tesla's because of their thick margins and because they're willing to cut out things like the radar and the ultrasonic sensors and there's no HUD, there's no driver display, there's no even accessibility handles. Tesla cuts out things all the time, which is why I've done videos on this in the past. They can undercut everyone. So yes, it makes sense. They kind of do cut on the build quality. I've experienced that with my car. I had window issues, I had wind noise issues. I can see it up here. Everybody was complaining about it whenever I would record videos. All this kind of stuff. You know, it's noticeable. It's not really supposed to be there. And a lot of people can easily argue, oh my God, it's a $50,000 car. It should come with good interior. Yeah, okay, same all arguments, but I would much rather put up with a little wrinkle here, a little smudge here. Like my speaker bar wasn't properly inserted when I got the car, but I just pushed on it and it snapped into place. It's a little clunky. It's a little cheap. I get that. But I had the expectation going into this car that my money's going towards the battery, the software, and the chargers. That's what I'm paying for. I'm not paying for the most luxurious interior experience. Although, personally, coming from a guy who drove a Hyundai Sonata for 6, 7 years before this car, I still find this incredibly luxurious. I wouldn't put it on the same level as a Rivian, of course, but it doesn't cost as much either. But also, that extends to the Model S and X. I've been in the Model S and X, and I don't find the build quality that much better than a Model 3. I know you don't have a Netflix subscription, but have you seen Leave the World Behind? Yeah, we were just talking about that earlier. It was horrible movie, but it's part of the reason that I think Tesla shouldn't call it full self-driving. Because if they wouldn't have called it FSD and instead just called it Tesla Vision Pro, and it just was treated as a very capable, very effective driver assist feature and not a driver replacement feature like Elon keeps claiming it, um, you wouldn't have, you know, Tesla anti-Tesla propaganda like in those movies. It was a hilariously bad movie though. I hated the ending. It was so unsatisfying. Um, yeah, the electric redneck says my Model X Plaid is creaky as heck, and you probably paid over $100,000 for it. I'm guessing. I could be wrong, but yeah, Tesla build quality is not known for being great, but I think if you go into it with the expectation that this is, you're paying for the software, you're paying for the battery, the interior build isn't going to be Porsche levels or Mercedes levels, but I think most people are okay with that because most people aren't analyzing the quality of their interior at any given moment. Most people care about the software because they use that a lot. You pay for the entire product. I still think you should have the standard of it being put together properly. It costs extra. It's just a production. It's a production yield thing. There's no way around it. If you wanted Tesla to be on the same level of build quality at Mercedes or BMW or Porsche, it means pulling more vehicles off the line if they don't hit certain yields. It means not delivering as many vehicles. It means being more rigorous with your inspection process. It costs more. There's a reason that build quality is better on more expensive vehicles. And Tesla's goal is not to make the best vehicles. I try to remind people of that because a lot of people seem to act like it is. A lot of people seem to have this expectation as Tesla's goal is to make the best cars of the world. No, Tesla's goal is to sell the most EVs possible. I mean, their literal goal is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, but um, that doesn't require you to make the best build quality. All that requires you is to sell the most or sell as many as you can. So Tesla's mission statement is very much motivated by how many can we build, how many can we sell. And so if your goal is to sell the most, you're going to be McDonald's. McDonald's ain't got the best food, but they sell a crap ton of it. Rivian can be your more fancy steak dinner, more high class restaurant. Tesla's going to be the McDonald's though. Uh, totally agreed. Panel gaps and build quality issues are less important than something that needs repair just to get home on a drive. Yeah, it'd be different if there was safety issues, but Teslas are very safe, um, despite what many people think. No, they all blow up. Um, Tesla scene really freaked me out, and I can't look at white Model 3s the same way anymore. How many years will superchargers be able to operate? What is the payback period for supercharger / profit per kilowatt hour? I don't think there's a one size answer to that. I think it varies heavily depending on the region, the cost to implement it, the cost of the property, the rent they have to pay. The electricity is very different depending on each supercharger. I've seen some superchargers where it's 20 cents a kilowatt hour and some superchargers where it's 60 cents a kilowatt hour. So I'm sure the profit point, depending on those locations, is totally different. There's also some superchargers that have very little activity that barely get any charging there. And there's other superchargers that almost perpetually have a line. Um, but I don't think there's like a set life cycle. Like they need to be maintained. Like I've been to superchargers that go down sometimes or the cable breaks, but then Tesla comes and fixes it up and then goes about their day. There's a lot of old V2 superchargers that have been around for a long, long time. And I'm sure they go out sometimes and need to be serviced, but I don't know what you mean by like how many years will they operate? Like I don't think it's very common for them to just permanently shut down. Usually they just need to be serviced. And I think the newer ones last longer than the older ones. So not make the car more luxurious, put together properly what you have. I'm saying it's harder and harder to do that at the higher and higher volume you go because if you do find if you want machinery and you want assembly, it's not just about like people assembling things. It's not that simple. It's not just like tell the people at the factory to do a better job putting it together. It's like no, if you have a certain production target, like you need to build 500,000 Model Ys a year off of this factory, then you need certain machinery cranking out a certain component or certain piece of the interior or assembling these two pieces together X many times per minute or per hour. And when they're running at that high volume, you can't be that precise. You can try, you can do your best. Honestly, I do think relative to how many they build, the build quality is great, but it's not perfect. And Tesla's building more of these things than anybody else is, which is probably why we notice more build quality issues than anybody else. Because when there is build quality issues, we all talk about it and it makes headlines because Tesla generates the clicks. Um, yeah, T-Mobile is dropping the ball, but the bit rate seems okay for now. Um, me as a German that has different standards as Americans about car quality. Yeah, that could be it, but I'm just saying it's a lot more complicated than you think because the German vehicles with good build quality you're referencing are not being built at the same scale as Tesla's vehicles. Mercedes better materials, build quality equals $100,000 vehicle. Yeah, I don't think it's just about materials, but also just like production yields. There's always little edge cases. You never have 100% perfection yield. There's always slight variances, and if you want to be very picky, then that means pushing more cars off the assembly line for, hey, this one has a slight crease in the interior. Okay, don't sell it. Push that aside, and then they can't sell as many vehicles, and they lose more money. So I think it's good that Tesla's kind of pushing those limits because I know a lot of people are not going to care about that kind of thing. A lot of people are going to thrash the car the first week they get it. So why be so picky? You can't put a profit per kilowatt hour because each station will be different based on the cost of electricity. Yeah. Hummus Yummus is basically answering the question for me. But I do believe Tesla can run them at a profit. EA probably not. Everything data wise we've seen indicates that superchargers cost about 1/5 the price, maybe 1/4. Might be different with V4 because they have longer cables and stuff. But Tesla's, I think it's safe to say Tesla's superchargers are substantially cheaper to build than Electrify America stations, probably than ChargePoint too. Um, I would say V4 is probably like half as much just because the payment terminals are more simple. They optimize the cable length to not be terribly long. Tesla's good at manufacturing things at scale, servicing things. So I would guess that Tesla will continue to have a lead, especially in the US, on how many superchargers can be built. Um, T-Mobile home internet is, I haven't seen that to be the case, Ricky. But my speeds have been fine. They're just inconsistent. Like right now, I'm getting 5,000 kilobits per second, which is what I asked OBS to do. It's perfect. If Tesla improved the quality standard too much, they would lose their affordability. Probably it's a gamble. I'm sure Tesla doesn't choose to have bad build quality. Of course, they would rather have good. And I think that's their goal at Giga Shanghai and the new factories is try to optimize the assembly process so you have as little uh, poor production yields as possible. But I'm just saying anything you build at that high volume, there's going to be slight variances and there's going to be little inconsistencies. And it's not the end of the world. A lot of people are okay with it. Some parts are just weak or not well designed, and age makes it visible over time. That's true. Sometimes, if you want the part to age well or not to be as easily damaged, like I have these little creases on my, um, I forget what this is called. I know what it trim. No, there's a different term for it. I forget what it's called. I'm blanking because there's a million words coming out of my mouth, but um, the creasing and stuff probably wouldn't happen if you chose a different material that would cost more. So sometimes the choice of the materials does affect the build quality. Uh, Tesla should have shipped the Cybertruck without the all-terrain tires first into the more efficient ones. Yeah, I headliner. Thank you. Yeah, it was on the tip of my tongue because I was just reading about it. Everyone was saying the Model 3 refresh should have had a black headliner, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I kind of agree. I've seen the black headliner in the Model S, and I thought that looked a lot cooler. I've seen people do it to their Model 3s and Ys where they change the headliner color. It looks nice. It's cool. Um, oh, yeah. And then Elon said micron level precision. Again, setting a bad expectation, over promising. We knew that they couldn't do 10 micron level precision. Anybody that knew anything about manufacturing said that's ridiculous. That's not going to happen. Um, yeah, control arms are pretty bad quality, but they're probably very cheap. I bet they're, I hate to say it, but I get the feeling sometimes that Tesla chooses a lot of parts based on will this last longer than the warranty? As long as it lasts longer than the warranty, then we'll do it, but not much longer. And then out of warranty, it starts falling apart. So that's what I'm most scared about. When people talking to me about my Tesla and the cost of maintenance and long term ownership and that kind of thing, people are always like, oh, what about the battery pack when you have to replace that? How much battery degradation do you have? And it's like, uh, I'm not worried about the battery pack. I'm worried about all the other things stacking up. I think what I'm most concerned about is servicing little things on my Tesla and all of those things stacking up, like death by a thousand cuts. It's your control arms go bad, and then a headlight goes out, and then a seat goes bad, and then your HVAC goes bad. And because all of this service has to be done in house, because Tesla doesn't want you working on your own car, or they make the parts hard to find or hard to replace yourself. I need to talk more to Winston. He's another Tesla YouTuber from up north. I've talked with him a little bit, and he's more into self-servicing uh, vehicles, and I I want to get more into that. I'm not really good at it. I'm not good at working with my hands. I'm not great at servicing cars and stuff, but because I have the belief that if I expect Tesla to service everything that goes wrong in my car, I'm probably going to be spending thousands and thousands on out of warranty repairs. I'm financially motivated to get more. And because it's an EV, I'm more open to it. With a gas car, I'm just miserable. I've tried to work on my Sonata so many times and I just hate it. I'm just like, this is dumb. This is stupid. I don't want to do this. This is annoying. With an electric car, maybe I'll be more open to it because it's a Tesla and I like EVs and that kind of thing. But oof, there goes the bit rate. Typical American company, as long as it outlasts the warranty. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of Americans aren't going to keep the car that long anyway. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of people still driving older Model S's and Model 3s and Ys that are doing okay. So it's not the end of the world. It's not like the car explodes when the warranty expires. It's just, yeah, there's a couple of things that might go bad and it's kind of annoying. Um, there's things that go bad with European cars too. Don't act like they're flawless. I mean, ID4 has had massive software issues from day one. You know, it's not even a, oh, when it's out of warranty, something breaks. It's just like, no, I mean, I've just bought it and it sucks. Replacement battery packs will cost half in 5 years. Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the first LFP battery replacement will cost, if there will be one, because the LFP is supposed to have a way better cycle life, which is why I'm kind of excited. Relatively speaking, I have a fairly early LFP battery. You know, I think Tesla's going to continue using LFP batteries for many years to come, but I got mine about a year after they first were introduced. And if we're expecting them to last 10, 15, 20 plus years, then, you know, I was in the first year of LFP production. So, uh, I'm curious to see if someone does have an LFP battery pack go bad, how much does that cost to replace? Because LFP doesn't have nickel or cobalt, so I would imagine the LFP battery would be cheaper. I don't know exactly how much it's going to cost, but um, there's some car companies that use plastic parts to replace usually metal parts. I think BMW and Chrysler did this at some point or still do. Oh yeah, it's very common. But honestly, there's some very good composite plastics now. There's some plastics that can outlast metal or age much better than metal. Um, there's a lot of old cars that did not age very well. I know that the kind of car community, gas car fanboys like to have this mentality that, oh yeah, they don't make them like they used to. Those old fashioned metal cars, they age so much better. They really don't. I mean, some of them do because you only hear about the ones that age well, but most of the cars built in the 60s, 70s, 80s, no, they do not last as long as cars built today, even though they didn't have as many plastics in them. Um, Aging ice cars take a lot of money and repair costs just to figure out what thousands of parts went bad. Belts, hoses, fluids, sensors, all through the same engine code. Yeah, I know. I've been there. That's the main reason I wanted an EV is because of how much I hated the combustion engine. It wasn't from a love of batteries. It was more from a love of not having an engine to worry about because I've had transmissions go bad, head gaskets go bad, starters go bad. So many things, everything you can imagine I've seen go bad with a gas car. So, um, yeah, you don't have to tell me twice. Do I like the matte screen protector on my Tesla or would you get a glossy one instead? It's okay. I've been thinking about it though more and more and I'm like, you know what? I do kind of like the glossy look. I'm thinking about taking the screen protector off. It's been on there for a year and a half and I don't think it's really protecting it from much. I thought, well, you know, it's a screen that I'm planning on owning for potentially 20 plus years, so I better protect it, but I don't do that with the exterior of the car. I let it get rock chips and stuff. So I'm kind of like, yeah, maybe I should just pull it off. Because I really do prefer my other screens without screen protectors. Like my phone, I think feels so much better without one. Glossy would get more glare. Yeah, but I can still get glare with a matte one. I have the new software is pretty good, but that's only on new cars because the hardware on the older cars can't support the new. Oh, on your VW? Interesting. David Quigley says, I'm curious to know if the replacement batteries will perform better than the batteries that originally shipped with the car a decade later. Possibly, but I'm guessing no, just because I've seen instances where Tesla will replace the battery with not a brand new battery. they will take a battery that's still got some cycles on it, but is above the 80% of the battery health that is going into the car. So there was a guy that had a battery pack lose a bunch of, you had a lot of degradation in his Tesla. Energy battery health dipped below 80%. So they replaced it with a battery that was at like 90%. So they said, hey, it's better. So I don't know how much of the battery packs that they use for service are going to be brand new versus, slightly used slash, this battery pack was in a collision with another car, but it's okay now, or it had some dead cells in it, so it didn't make it into a production car, but we will save it for a battery replacement. Remanufactured battery, yeah, that's the term. So yes, batteries do get better over time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the batteries you're going to get if you pay for a battery replacement. Um, you don't have any PPF on your car? Nah, don't care, don't need it, don't want it. Um, I've seen cars with PPF that still get damaged. It's like it can happen. It's at a certain point you just have to accept the car might not be in perfect condition. Um, as a glossy protector owner, I don't recommend removing your matte protector. The fingerprints are miserable. Well, I mean, matte still gets fingerprints, to be fair. I can still see a lot on my screen right now. Use remanufactured batteries for additional home battery. Yeah, that over time, as more and more EVs get older and degrade faster, there will be lots of remanufactured cells. The software on older VW ID4s are buggy, but the new ones are better. Well, that's good. I'm glad they addressed that. Um, have you seen the YouTube video from the guy who owns some sort of Tesla in a very cold climate in Canada? No, but I've seen a lot of people who own EVs in the cold. I do not believe the whole thing. EVs don't work in the cold. It's like look at Norway. It's not a very warm place, but it's almost like 80% EV sales. EVs can work in the cold. They take a little bit of education, and it helps if you can charge from home. It becomes more problematic if you're trying to not charge it from home and just DC fast charge it all the time because then you got to precondition the battery for fast charging, and not everybody knows how to do that, or some of the cars don't even let you do that, which can get annoying. So if you're purely relying on DC fast charging and you're treating DC chargers like gas stations, which you shouldn't, but some people don't have a choice, then the cold weather can be a lot more frustrating. But I just find the cold weather frustrating in general. Even if you have a gas car, it's not fun to live in. I've driven gas cars, well, not a ton, but I've had experience, I should say, with gas cars in harsh winters, and it's not fun in any car, EV or gas. It's not that enjoyable. You gotta monitor your tires and your tire pressure, and your starters act up, and gas. Your economy still takes a hit in a gas car, even in the extreme cold, and you got to worry about slipping and black ice. And my sister was in a car accident a few weeks ago because of black ice, and she's okay, but still, it's just there's a lot of problems when you live in climates where it gets that cold. So yeah, EVs have some problems too. I'm not trying to say they're perfect, but just saying you should kind of have that expectation with your vehicle if you're choosing to live in a place where it gets that cold, or you can't move away from a place where it lives that cold. So I get there's lots of things to complain about. EVs are more resilient to cold than ice, as in internal combustion engine, I think is what he meant. But yeah. Oh my god, the bit rate. So bad. I'm sorry, everybody. It's horrible, horrible. We got to bring up the earnings call here. Should get started pretty quick. Hey, there's me. Let's react to myself. Tesla earnings. They should start the live stream here in a second. Oh my god, everybody's live at the same time, including me. There they are. Let's go. They're probably playing music. We'll wait for talking. Very cold weather ice cars parked outside need engine block warmers, so plugging in. Yeah, that's true. Gas cars have their own set of issues. You rely on the screen for interacting with the car. You don't interact with the exterior quarter panel. Your phone gets replaced every few years. Your car does not. Keep the screen protector. Okay. if you say so. It's a lot Tesla has to learn to cut costs and reduce services. My 2023 Model Y long range has a boot looping autopilot computer under a month and it's getting replaced. Sheesh. That's a problem. Yeah, I've also heard, okay, you don't need to play it HD. No one's going to be able to see that, Tesla. We just need the audio. Come on, bitrate. You can save yourself. Also, there were a lot of LFP Model 3s there, which already charge slower in the cold. Oh, yeah. LFP batteries love to stay cold all the time, which is the problem. You need the battery to be hot in order to fast charge it. And even under high loads, the LFP battery just stays cold. I've experienced that myself. But if you're in a winter climate where it gets super cold, your range is going to take a hit. So I think more people should be buying the long range variants if they live in those weather conditions anyway. They probably want the all-wheel drive in the first place. Do I think the Highland Model 3 will qualify for the tax credit in the future? Maybe the performance, but it seems like they're pretty comfortable relying on the foreign-made battery packs, so they're probably going to keep it that way. Since the bit rate sucks so much, I'm just going to switch over here to theater mode. Put my face down here. So you guys can see everything. It's just music playing. Just got my lock in your order email from Rivian. Woohoo! Pre-price hike order holder. Wow. Good job, Electric Redneck. Wait, you've been waiting a long time. I thought they delivered all of the pre-price hikes. What'd you get, an R1S? Tesla should have a cheaper brand, kind of like Hyundai has Kia, so that they make cars. I don't think that's how that works. A lot of Hyundais and Kias are the same price. Tesla is the cheaper brand. The more expensive version of Tesla is Rivian. Because Rivian is just a bunch of former Tesla employees. There were a lot of LFP Model 3. Yeah. I'm an LFP kind of guy. I mean, most people don't live in the extreme cold, I should mention. Like, if you look at population maps, most of the world prefers living in the warmer climates anyway. Um, can't wait for the day when cold doesn't affect EVs. I'm here to tell you it will always affect EVs because it always affects gas cars too. Um, it's just a matter of how much. I mean, if you're just driving around in 30 degrees Fahrenheit, it's not going to make a big difference. I've done that. I've driven around in the freezing weather and it's Tesla still do pretty good. But when you're talking about like sub-zero temperatures, that always will affect your efficiency. Your heat pump's always going to work harder. There's always going to be more ice, more snow to worry about when it's super cold out. So it makes sense that there will be an effect. I think we're
My name is Martin Vieca, VP of Investor Relations, and I'm joined today by Elon Musk, Vaibhav Taneja, and a number of other executives. Our Q4 results were announced at about 3 p.m. Central Time in the update deck we published at the same link as this webcast. During this call, we will discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. These comments are based on our predictions and expectations as of today. Actual events or results could differ materially due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those mentioned in our most recent filings with the SEC. During the question and answer portion of today's call, please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up. Please use the raise hand button to join the question queue. But before we jump into Q&A, Elon has some opening remarks. Elon?
Thank you. So the Tesla team did an incredible job in 2023. We achieved record production and deliveries of over 1.8 million vehicles, in line with our official guidance. And in Q4, we were producing vehicles at an annualized run rate of almost 2 million cars a year. This was really a phenomenal achievement. Looking at just the Fremont factory alone, we made 560,000 cars. This is a record. In fact, it's the highest output automotive plant in North America. And people are often surprised that the highest output car factory in North America is in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's a little counterintuitive, perhaps. And it's really had an incredibly positive impact on that entire area. what would have been a rundown strip mall is the highest productivity car plant in the Americas. Think about that. It was derelict when we got it, and now it's the most productive plant in this entire part of the world. And it's enriched the community in so many different ways. It's really a gem. So I'm super proud of the people that work there. Model Y became the best-selling vehicle globally, as predicted. The best-selling vehicle of any kind, not just electric vehicles, with over 1.2 million units delivered. The energy storage business delivered nearly 15 gigawatt hours of batteries in 2023 compared to 6.5 gigawatt hours the year before. So tremendous year-over-year growth, triple digits. Yeah, I think we'll continue to see very strong growth in storage. As predicted, I said for many years that the storage business would grow much faster than the car business, and it is doing that. Free cash flow remains strong at $4.4 billion in 2023, in spite of record spending on future projects. So we had record capex expenses as well as record R&D. This brings us to 2024. There's a lot to look forward to in 2024. Tesla is currently between two major growth waves. We're focused on making sure that our next growth wave, driven by next-gen vehicle, energy storage, full self-driving, and other projects, is executed as well as possible. For full self-driving, we've released version 12, which is a complete architectural rewrite compared to prior versions. This is end-to-end artificial intelligence. So another bit nets, basically photons in and controls out. And it really is quite a profound difference. This is currently just with employees and a few customers, but we will be rolling out to all customers in the US who request full self-driving in the weeks to come. That's over 400,000 vehicles in North America. So this is the first time AI is being used not just for object perception, but for path planning and vehicle controls. We replaced 330,000 lines of C++ code with neural nets. It's really quite remarkable. Sort of as a side note, I think Tesla is probably the most efficient company in the world for AI inference. Out of necessity, we've actually had to be extremely good at getting the most out of hardware, because hardware 3 at this point is several years old. So I think we're quite far ahead of any other company in the world in terms of AI inference efficiency, which is going to be a very important metric in the future in many arenas. So see, the new Model 3 is now available globally. So we did an updated Model 3. While the car looks similar, a lot of work has gone into the vehicle to make it better in every way. It is significantly quieter, more refined, better equipped, has longer range, and many other improvements. And I recommend taking it for a test drive. If you have not driven a Model 3 in a long time, you should really try the new one. So steady improvements. And we're very far along on our next generation low-cost vehicle. This is an earnings call, not a product announcement. So there'll no doubt be many questions that try to ask us about new products coming, but we reserve product announcements for product announcements, not earnings calls. So, but we're very excited about this, and this is really going to be profound, not just in its design of the vehicle itself, but in the design of the manufacturing system. This is a revolutionary manufacturing system, significant, far more advanced than any other automotive manufacturing system in the world, like by a significant margin. Several years ago, I said perhaps the most important competitive characteristic of Tesla in the future will be manufacturing technology, and you will really see that come to bear with our next-gen vehicle. The first manufacturing location for this will be at our Gigafactory and headquarters in Austin, Texas. And then we'll follow that up with other locations around the world. Probably the factory we'll build in Mexico will be second, and then we'll be looking to identify a third location, perhaps by the end of this year or early next, outside of North America. So, in conclusion, we had a great year with record production, record deliveries, and a strong free cash flow in spite of a very high interest rate environment. And we are focused on exciting new projects that will, I think, ultimately, if we execute on all these things, and it is very hard to do all these things, it's not a sure thing, but I do see a path where Tesla could one day be the most valuable company in the world. I do want to emphasize that is not an easy path, a very difficult one, but it is now in the set of possible outcomes. And previously, I would not have thought it is in the set of possible outcomes. So, thank you again to all of our investors, our employees, and our suppliers for a strong year, and looking forward to a great 2024 and years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. And our CFO, Vaibhav, have some opening remarks as well.
Thanks, Martin. Good afternoon, everyone. As Elon mentioned, we had a record year in terms of both production and deliveries for our auto business, as well as record deployments in our energy business. This was achieved despite 2023 being a challenging year in terms of higher interest rates and higher inflation. Big thanks to our customer for being with us through this challenging period. I would also like to thank the whole Tesla team for their resolve and dedication throughout. In terms of 2023 financials, we ended the year with over $96 billion of revenue and generated $4.4 billion of free cash flow to end the year with over $29 billion of cash and investments on hand. Our 2023 GAAP net income was impacted by the recognition of one-time non-cash benefit of $5.9 billion from the release of valuation allowance on certain deferred tax assets. This was due to our recent history of sustained profitability and is similar to several other companies who have recently gone through a similar change in their accounting. Accordingly, starting with Q1, our book tax rate will now be more in line with other companies in the S&P 500. In our vehicle business, we continue to see improvements in our per unit cost despite us being in the early phase of Cybertruck ramp. As a result, our auto gross margin improved sequentially. That said, predicting auto gross margins is extremely challenging since there are many moving parts to this equation, some of which are out of our control, like the change in tariffs or local incentives, to name a few. While the teams are focused on cost reductions, we are approaching the limits within our current platforms. On the demand front, as promised, we made investments in digital campaigns in 2023. We fully appreciate the importance of customer education as we are still in the customer acquisition phase. Our data suggests that around 90% of our vehicle buyers in 2023 never owned a Tesla before. We are being creative in figuring out ways to bring in new customers and educate them about the benefits of owning a Tesla versus gas-powered vehicles. The key among them being total cost of ownership. This concept is mostly overlooked for just the upfront cost. We will be rigorous in evaluating our campaigns, curating the content, and optimizing spend accordingly to support the overall demand. There are two additional things I would like to mention as it relates to the US market. First, for customers who qualify for the IRA buyer credit, we now offer that as a point of sale benefit for Model Y, which means an immediate reduction of $7,500 at the time of purchase to the end customer. Secondly, we continue to offer very attractive lease rates for Model 3 and Y using our partner leasing program. Note that the sales under this program are recognized as upfront revenue and reported within automotive sales. Our energy storage business had another record year with deployments more than doubling and revenues increasing by more than 50%. This business is poised to again surpass our auto business in terms of growth rate in 2024. This has been in the works for quite some time, with us laying the foundation a few years back by building our mega factory in Lathrop. I would like to thank the whole Tesla Energy team for their efforts to make this a reality. Our services and others business also started contributing meaningfully to our results and our fleets as our fleet goes, as we expect the fleet-based revenues from supercharging, used cars, and services to continue to increase. For 2024, our focus is to continue growing our output, continuing our cost reduction efforts, and increasing investments in our future growth initiatives. Accordingly, we are currently expecting our capital expenditure for 2024 to be in excess of $10 billion. We believe this would be critical in helping us lay the foundation for the next phase of growth. Once again, I would like to thank everybody at Tesla, our investors, and our suppliers for being with us in this journey. We can open it up to questions, Martin.
Thank you. Let's go through investor questions. Question number one is from Michael. Given that you moved the start of the next generation compact vehicle production to Austin, has the timeline improved so that we might see the next generation platform vehicles in 2025?
I want to certainly say things with that should be taken with a grain of salt. Since I'm often optimistic, I don't want to blow your minds, but I'm often optimistic regarding time. But our current schedule says that we will start production towards the end of 2025, so sometime in the second half. That's just what our current schedule says. There's a lot of new technology, like a tremendous amount of new revolutionary manufacturing technology here. The reason I want to put this new revolutionary manufacturing line at Giga Texas was because we really need the engineers to be living on the line. This is not sort of a off the shelf, just works type of thing. And it's just a lot easier for Tesla engineering to live on the line if it's in Austin versus elsewhere. So, but we are currently expecting to start production second half next year. That will be a challenging production ramp. Like I can emphasize, we'll be sleeping on the line practically. In fact, not practically, we will be. But I am confident that once it is going, it will be head and shoulders above any other manufacturing technology that exists anywhere in the world. It's next level. So it's always difficult to predict what that S-curve of manufacturing looks like. So it always starts off real slow, and then it grows exponentially. And predicting that intermediate S-curve is difficult, but so I don't know. It's hard to say what the unit volume would be next year. We're not going to make any predictions on that front, but it does seem quite likely that we will start production next year.
Thank you. The next question is from Michael again. What has been the barrier to ramping 4680 cells into multi-million cells per week rate, and when do you expect to get there? Drew?
Yeah, first, I just want to allay any concerns regarding 4680 limiting the Cybertruck ramp, because I've seen some people commenting about that. To date, 4680 production is ahead of the ramp with actually weeks of finished cell inventory. And the goal is to keep it that way, not only for Cyber, but for our future vehicle programs. And as Elon said, it is an S-curve here too. Like it's hard to predict these things, but I'm just describing our goals.
It's a hard problem. Like,
yeah,
there are entire companies where all they do is make battery cells. That's like all they do.
Indeed, okay. Indeed.
We do a lot of other things, and we got a lot of breakthrough technologies that take time to figure out with 46. It's not just that it's a 46 millimeter diameter by 80 millimeter coil cell. That's just the diameter. That's just the dimensions. Mm-hmm. There's a tremendous amount of new technology in the cell itself
and manufacturing technology.
Yes, exactly.
And just regarding what the team was able to do in Q4, Texas successfully swapped line 1 from the Model Y design of the cell to the Cybertruck design of the cell, which was the 10% cell energy increase I've mentioned before. And as with any major new product introduction, the factory and engineering teams collaborated to ensure quality of the new design and the process changes as their first priority. And now our focus returns to cost and production ramp in Q1. In terms of what we're doing, we're currently running 1 production line, 1 assembly line, using 2 assembly lines in addition for yield and rate improvement trials. And we have a 4th in commissioning, and 4 more will be installed starting in Q3 this year. So definitely this is a big year for ramping 4680.
But we also do want to emphasize that we also expect to ramp orders from our suppliers.
Yep.
So this is not about replacing our suppliers; it's about supplementing our suppliers.
Yes.
So we are very appreciative of our suppliers. Panasonic obviously is our longest supplier. They're an amazing company. We've got CATL, we've got LG, and BYD. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from Adam. Should retail shareholders be concerned that Elon has stated that he's uncomfortable expanding AI and robotics at Tesla if he doesn't have 25% of voting?
Yeah, I guess let me explain what my concern is here, which is that I see a path to creating an artificial intelligence and robotics juggernaut of truly immense capability and power. And my concern would be, I don't want to control it, but if I have so little influence over the company at that stage that I could sort of be voted out by some sort of random shareholder advisory firm. We've had a lot of challenges with institutional shareholder services, ISS, I call them ISIS, and Glass Lewis, which there's a lot of activists that basically infiltrate those organizations and have, strange ideas about what should be done. So, so I want to have enough to be influential. Like if we could do a dual class stock, that would be ideal. I'm not looking for additional economics. I just want to be an effective steward of very powerful technology.
So why'd you buy Twitter and sell out stock?
The reason I just sort of roughly picked approximately 25% was that's not so much that I can control the company, even if I go bonkers. And if I'm like mad, they can throw me out. But it's enough that I have a strong influence. That's what I'm aiming for, is a strong influence but not control. There's some way to achieve that would be great.
Thank you. The next question is, what is your expectation for automotive gross margin ex regulatory credits for the full year?
Like I said in my opening remarks, we're focused on reducing the cost of our vehicles. This is very extensive and involved exercise whereby we look at not just the component cost but down to the packaging used to get the materials to the production floor. Each element of the cost is scrutinized to optimize further. A few pennies saved at the subcomponent level, whether through engineering redesign or from many other things which I mentioned, leads to cost reduction. This is a constant exercise, and we just have to chase down every penny possible. We have a strong team which is hyper-focused on this. However, this is a very difficult thing to predict precisely because there are a lot.
We don't know. We don't have a crystal ball, so it's difficult for us to predict this with precision. If the interest rates come down quickly, I think margins will be good, and if they don't come down quickly, they won't be that good. Yeah. It's always important to remember that the vast majority of people buying a car is about the monthly payment. It's not that people don't want. We have tons of we have lots of people who want to buy our car but simply cannot afford it. And that as interest rates drop and that monthly payment drops, then they're able to afford it and they buy the car. It's pretty straightforward, and there are no tricks around to get around this.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. The next question is, does the company anticipate 50% volume CAGR to be realized in either 2024 or 2025? If not, why not?
As we have said in our prior guidance, there will be periods where we won't be growing at the same rate as before. We are between two major growth waves. The first one began with the global expansion of Model 3 and Y. And we believe the next one will be initiated with the next generation platform. In 2024, our volume growth will be lower, as we have said, because we're trying to focus the team on the launch of the next generation vehicle.
All right. Thank you very much. The next question is from Michael. When will Tesla start construction on the Giga Nevada expansion and Giga Mexico? And when can we expect each of these to produce their first products, such as 4680 cells, semi, and the next-gen vehicles?
We have recently broken ground for the next phase of Giga Nevada expansion to incorporate semi and other projects. But as said earlier, as regarding Mexico, we want to first demonstrate success with the next generation platform in Austin before we start construction. Therefore, we have started the long lead work to get the basics ready and plan to follow our recipe from the 3Y ramp with Shanghai, where we started with learnings from Fremont and ramped really quickly.
Yeah, exactly. It's important to emphasize that, Model 3 production was 3 years of hell, honestly, before. Some of the worst years of my life, frankly. I still have mental scar tissue from those 3 years, as do many. But then Model Y was, somewhat of a variant on Model 3, so a much easier situation. And then we were able to actually do slightly improved versions of, in some cases, significantly improved versions of the Model Y production line in Shanghai and Berlin. And that's the right. I think the sensible way to go about things is kind of figure out the core technology of the manufacturing line and then replicate it with improvements throughout the world. So.
Thank you. The next question from Michael is, has there been any progress made with an FSD licensing agreement with another company?
I really think lots of car companies should be asking for FSD licenses, but and we've had some tentative conversations, but I think they don't believe it's real quite yet.
Oh, gee, I wonder why.
I think that will become obvious probably this year. And I do want to emphasize that if I were CEO of another car company, I would definitely be calling Tesla and asking to license Tesla full self-driving technology. It's definitely the smart move.
Can the Cybertruck license it so it gets autopilot?
The next question from Siddharth. What is the timeline for Optimus' first production of a volume production line, and what are the barriers to getting there?
Optimus obviously is a very new product, an extremely revolutionary product, and something that I think has the potential to far exceed the value of everything else that Tesla combined. And when you think of an economy is productivity per capita times capita. But what if there's no limit to capita? There's no limit to the economy. And the technologies the AI technologies we've developed for the car translate quite well to a humanoid robot, because the car is just a robot on 4 wheels. Tesla is arguably already the biggest robot maker in the world. It's just a 4-wheeled robot. So Optimus is a humanoid robot with arms and legs.
There's gas-powered robots.
It's by far the most sophisticated humanoid robot that's being developed anywhere in the world. I think we've got a good chance of shipping some number of Optimus units next year. But like I said, this is a brand new product. A lot of uncertainty is when there's a lot of uncertainty in your uncharted territory, it's obviously impossible to make a precise prediction. But we will be updating the public with progress on Optimus every few months, and you can see that it's advancing very quickly. I was just in the Optimus lab actually until late last night, until like midnight or something. And finally left the Optimus lab. The team's doing amazing work. That's obviously a case where we want to make sure that Optimus is safe, especially at scale, and that it should be impossible for any centralized control to upload malware to a humanoid robot. So we're going to want to build in localized shutoff that cannot be updated from the from a central server. That's a case where we really have to give extreme thought to safety. But like I said, I do think it has the potential to be the most valuable product of any kind ever, by far.
Just to comment on the barrier, I think the barrier, and we've talked about this, is like getting it to actually do something useful. Like we can get it to walk around, we can get it to do things, but it's like that utility part.
We can already do some useful things.
But like, you know,
yeah,
to making millions of these things, it's like utility. Got to get the utility up.
Yeah. A smart robot
Drew arguing
that
with
can do
Elon.
that's capable of doing generalized tasks is what it will be. And in terms of doing, moderately specialized tasks, well, it can already do that, and it'll just get better through the course of the year. As we improve the technology in the car, we improve the technology in Optimus at the same time. It runs the same AI inference computer that's on the car. Same training technology.
Does the
we're
bot
really
have
building the
phantom
future.
braking?
The Optimus Lab looks like the set of Westworld. But admittedly, that was not a super utopian situation.
Yeah, not the best reference.
Yeah, the creators of Westworld, Jonah Nolan, Lisa Joy Nolan, old friends of mine actually, and I invited them to come see the lab. I think they'll come see it hopefully soon. It's pretty wild, especially the sort of subsystem test stands where you've just got like one leg on a test stand, just doing repetitive exercises, and one arm on a test stand. Pretty wild. Yeah.
We're not entering Westworld anytime soon.
Right. Well, and take safety very, very seriously.
Well, thank you. The next question from Nermin is, how many Cybertruck orders are in the queue, and when do you anticipate to be able to fulfill existing orders?
First of all, I want to thank all the Cybertruck reservation holders for their patience. The reservation to order conversion rate so far has been very, very encouraging. If the trend continues, as it's very likely to be, we will soon sort out all the builds in 2024. And also, we have new orders coming after the launch. The order numbers keep growing. So we're now all hands on deck, focused on ramping, so we can fulfill all the demands and reduce the wait time.
Yeah, it's important to emphasize that this is very much a production constrained situation, not a demand constrained situation. And we, obviously, we could dramatically raise the price, but that doesn't feel right to us to sort of gouge people.
Good, you did
for early delivery. But really the demand is off the hook. As long as the price is affordable.
What are you talking about?
I see us ultimately delivering on the order of something like a $250,000 Cybertrucks a year.
It's $100,000.
But maybe more, but give or take, roughly on that time frame. And it sure is a head turner.
Definitely is.
Yeah.
Anywhere you go, people look at you.
Yeah.
They give you thumbs up.
Yeah, it's like finally the future looks like the future. Yep. For the other trucks on the road there, and there's some very good trucks on the road, but if you were to switch out the brand name, you wouldn't hardly know which company made them, but you definitely would know the Cybertruck. That's our best product ever.
All right, thank you. The next question is, can we get Tesla energy volumes reported in the production and delivery release?
Yeah, we will strive to do so starting from this quarter. And just a brief update from the business perspective. Megapack continues to see strong demand signals globally, driving consistent growth trajectory through 24 and 25. We want to thank all of our partners who've put their trust in the Megapack team to execute on critical infrastructure around the world. And I would like to personally thank the Megapack engineering and production teams for their strong 2023 execution. Lathrop continues to ramp through 2024 with the operation of a second final assembly line to double capacity from 20 to 40 gigawatt hours by the end of the year.
Thank you. And the last investor question is from Siddharth. What are the preliminary results on return on investment of your ads and education campaign? Given that many people still lack awareness that Tesla average price is less than the average non-luxury car price of $45,000, will you expand educational ads?
As Elon mentioned, the ultimate solution to increase EV adoption is really address the affordability issue. But at the same time, we do aware there's an awareness issue as well. So in Q4, we ran a series of digital campaigns, very targeted digital campaigns across different geos and different channels. The target of these tests is really just to drive awareness and ultimately measure the return of investment on those digital channels. The messaging we're driving is really focused on our product and also try to address some of the misconception of the EV, such as safety, affordability. In one particular awareness campaign we run in Texas, we reached the audience about 10 million unique viewers and generated close to 500,000 visits to our website. A large number of these viewers are first-time visitors to our site. The traffic through these digital channels actually behaved very similar to those organic traffic come to our website. So going forward, we're just going to keep exploring different channels and doing our trials to get a better understanding of this effectiveness of these digital campaigns.
Yeah, but I would also like to caution that we'll be very careful that we don't want to overspend on this side. We want to make sure people are aware, but that's where we'll keep tweaking our methodology about how and where we spend the money, because we understand the importance of increasing awareness, but at the same token, we don't want to spend a lot of money on just creating awareness.
Yeah, I mean, there are some geographies where our market share is remarkably low, like Japan, for example. Now, we obviously need to make sure that we have superchargers in the right locations and the service centers are there and the product works well in Japan. But Japan is the third largest car market in the world of any country. So, and we should at least have a market share proportionate to, say, other non-Japanese car makers like Mercedes or BMW, which we do not currently have. So I think that's the case. And when I talk to friends of mine in Japan, they're like, there is like quite a lack of awareness of Tesla. So, that's the case where we definitely need to increase awareness in countries and regions where there is, not that much awareness.
Thank you. Let's go to analyst questions. The first question comes from Pierre Ferragu from New Street Research. Pierre, go ahead, please. Feel free to unmute. Pierre, can you hear us?
Okay. Well, it's really tough to find the unmute button on Teams, guys. I'm sorry for being late. So yes, my question would be, on like the cost reduction. You've talked about it already a lot, and if I look at it over the last 5-6 quarters on average, the COGS per car has been coming down more than 2% sequentially on average. So that means you're on a trajectory of COGS per car going down 10% a year. So that's probably unheard of in the auto industry. I don't think any car manufacturer ever achieved that. But that's very, very mundane and it's a good performance, but it's a very normal performance in a lot of other manufacturing industry like microelectronics or consumer electronics. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts about whether you consider yourself closer to the latter, to like a microelectronics business where you have this ability to actually always improve costs, you have more control on how things are pulled together into your fabs, and you see yourself sustainably taking costs down with that kind of pace? Or do you think your ability to take down cost is actually going to become more like in line with the rest in the industry over time?
Yeah, I think I've covered this in a pretty lengthy detail, even in my opening remarks and in a previous question. But to just further clarify, we are constantly looking for what we can do to reduce costs. And like I said, it's a game of pennies. We've talked about it before as well. And the team is constantly going and checking where can we reduce the cost further. And do I believe that we will have the same pace which you've seen over the past few years? Probably not, because remember, we were coming out with a period wherein commodity prices were rising. So then we did see benefits coming from that. So those are more or less, taken care of. But there is more which we're still chasing. And, I would say a big kudos goes to the team out here at Tesla, both the engineering team as well as the supply chain team, because every time we give them a challenge, they go gangbusters to try and figure out whatever they can to take out further cost. But yes, I would want to caution that do not project the previous cost reduction at the same pace completely in the future, because with our current platform, we are getting to a place wherein, there are limitations.
Yeah, the increased scale also sort of helps us there. As we introduce new products, we have the opportunity to go renegotiate existing suppliers for better pricing. We're looking at every penny, like Vaibhav and Elon mentioned. Just to give you an example, our inbound logistics cost has come down by 22% year over year. And this is because of optimization on using returnable packaging as opposed to cardboard, which is even better for the environment. Optimizing trucking routes, negotiating better pricing with shipping companies, with trucking companies, going with full truckloads, and just doing that sort of. The bigger we become, the more we put thought into these things, and the more efficient we become as a result of it. So those work streams are going to continue.
And we are also getting into the tiers of supply chain to see if there are opportunities.
Yeah.
Getting into the tier 2s, tier 3, tier 4 levels, and then negotiate those pricing as well to get more efficiency out of the system.
And then on the design side, we're not static, right? Like, especially in areas where the technology is still improving rapidly. Power electronics is a great example. We continue to bring improvements there that are like fundamentals, sort of driven from the device up, that result in cost reductions generation over generation, and they don't only go into the new vehicles; they come to the old vehicles as well. So that's closer to what you were talking about with like the microelectronics space. Some of that exists in the vehicle.
Yeah, certainly our car is more computer than car in many ways, and has a lot of new tech over the last 100 years of automotive production that everyone trying to scrape pennies from.
Oh, we have a crazy amount of compute in our cars compared to anyone else.
Yeah,
it's like orders of magnitude.
And we get to ride that down, right?
Maybe 1,000 times more. I don't know, some nutty number.
I mean, like if I just look at the main microcontroller that makes the motor go, for example, like when I think about what it costs when we stuck it in a Roadster in 2006, and what it costs now, I mean, it's like there's no comparison. Yeah. So we've definitely been riding that electronics cost wave.
Yeah.
And then even on the what you call traditional vehicle side, we do things that no other automakers do to bring costs down through breaking down, the way structures are built and the way we put our cars together. And I think that mindset that we have is very much closer to the micro processor or power electronics industry than the automotive industry.
Thank you. Pierre, do you have a follow-up?
Great. Yes, a quick one. It's you mentioned this like phase in which you are between two big growth periods. I'd love to hear you about what you consider the size of your addressable market with the portfolio you have today, like the 3, the Y, the X, and the S. What's your estimate of your addressable market? You're shipping like probably about like a 2 million unit run rate today. And given the price points of these cars, what kind of market share of what you address with these cars do you think you've already achieved today?
I don't know if does anybody. I actually don't think we have a firm idea of this. It's hard to say exactly.
Yeah, I won't say one way to think about it is look at the automotive industry as well. EVs still contribute a very small market share. So yes, our goal is to try and take as much market share out of that pie. But do I have a specific number to give you? I don't think we can say that with certainty.
And it's a growing pie as well.
Exactly.
It's 9% today, but it could be 20% in a couple of years or in the future.
Yeah.
And certainly, the way we've looked at it, and we've always said this, it's not about how many EVs can we sell, it's how many great cars you can sell, how many vehicles you can sell, and that market's 100 million a year, and we're barely 2% of that. I still think there's 98% more to get.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth noting that if you look at, say, the average selling price of the other top-selling vehicles in the world, they are much lower priced than a Model Y.
Yeah.
So like a Toyota RAV4 or Corolla, Honda Civic, that kind of thing, they're much lower priced than ours. So people are really stretching their wallets to be able to afford a Tesla. It's quite a difficult thing for them to do, and remarkable that it's the best-selling car in unit volume, despite being much more expensive than other high-volume cars.
Thank you. Let's go to the next analyst. The next question comes from Adam Jonas from Morgan Stanley.
Hey, everybody. So I can't wait to see the Optimus lab. I'm sure everybody on this call feels the same way. Your last AI day, Elon, was September 2022. Can we expect a Tesla AI day this year? It seems like a lot's changed in that realm. And is this year the time?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have found that when we do these AI days, some of our competitors literally look at what we do on a frame-by-frame basis.
They do.
And then we find these things being copied.
Same thing with Battery Day.
Same thing with Battery Day. So we have to be a little cautious about, revealing the exact recipe of the secret sauce. But I think some kind of update would be good to do. I'll talk it over with the team, and I think we might do something later this year. Our main goal with these AI Day things is recruiting. So
yes,
and to sort of change the perception of Tesla as people think of Tesla as a car company when they should be thinking of Tesla as an AI robotics company.
Mm-hmm. Maybe as a follow-up, Elon, I'd love your thoughts on the topic of China-based OEMs expanding into Western markets as the China market kind of gets saturated and there's a tremendous growth in the supply. How much success should Tesla investors allow for this competition to achieve in Western markets? And can you envision a scenario where Tesla could partner with a Chinese OEM to help accelerate sustainable transport in markets like Europe and the United States? Thanks.
Well, our observation is generally that the Chinese car companies are the most competitive car companies in the world. So I think they will have significant success outside of China, depending on what kind of tariffs or trade barriers are established. Frankly, I think if there are not trade barriers established, they will pretty much demolish most other car companies in the world. So they're extremely good. We don't see an obvious opportunity to partner. Certainly we're happy to, except on the supercharger front, we're obviously happy to give any electric car company access to our supercharger network. We're also happy to license full self-driving, perhaps license other technologies, and anything that could be helpful in advancing the sustainable energy revolution.
Thank you. And the next question comes from Dan Levi from Barclays.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking the questions. First, I'm wondering if you can just walk through some of the gating factors required to unlock your next-gen platform. You talked about a number of cost initiatives back at the Investor Day a year ago, things in manufacturing and powertrain. Maybe you can just give us a sense of where these initiatives stand. And do you believe it? We know that there's a number of new features and technologies in Cybertruck, things like 48-volt architecture, and really employing your 4680 batteries. To what extent do you think Cybertruck is really a proving ground for the next-gen platform and is really going to be a gating factor to unlocking the cost reductions needed for the next-gen platform?
Yeah, I don't think that anything on Cybertruck should be considered gating for the next gen platform. We're obviously doing a lot of manufacturing innovation, as Elon said, for a next generation vehicle. You know, when you do something at that scale, you have to prove it out. You don't just throw it on the line and just build it. So we're going through those validation phases for all of those new manufacturing technologies now. I'm sure 48 volt was definitely something we wanted to carry forward, you know, and it's something we hope the industry adopts as well. We're also open to partnering on that if everyone wants to do that.
Finally, man, the people that really know that this is like an inside baseball thing, but man, 48, it's so high time that the water industry moved from 12, the random number of 12 to 48.
Random number of 48.
Yeah, well, it's much less random.
Slightly less random based on human injury, but
I mean, dramatically reduces the amount of copper you need in the vehicle, and you know, and also moving to a sort of higher bandwidth communications, sort of Ethernet, you know, level communications versus CAN bus, which is pretty slow. So it's really just bringing cars to, you know,
the 21st century.
Yeah, pretty much.
So like certainly like
it's not exactly. It's like normal for a laptop. You know?
Yeah. Certainly bringing that, like, you know, it is an evolution in our architectures of vehicles, but it's not gating by any means. The gating work is just to finish the design and manufacturing of the car, test them out, and get them going.
Yeah, I mean, programs in execution mode, right?
Yep.
Right. So it's talking about like tooling lead time, manufacturing
factory lead time,
factory lead time, and executing those programs.
There's a lot of specialized machines that make the machine.
Yep.
For our next gen vehicle. So these are not machines you can just order from anyone. They actually, we have to design a machine that has never existed to build a car in a way that has never existed.
Yeah, so you don't just have like a design validation phase, but you have an equipment design validation phase as well.
It does make it very hard to copy us because you have to copy the machine that makes the machine that makes the machine. So,
talk about tiers.
It's not, yeah. It's like, you know, exactly, manufacturing exception. So, you know, I do think it's quite a powerful, sustainable advantage because there just is no place to go to order the machines that make our next gen car that don't exist.
Great, thank you. As a follow-up, your release does not mention Dojo, so if you could just provide us an update on where Dojo stands and at what point you expect Dojo to be a resource in improving FSD, or do you think that you now have sufficient supply of NVIDIA GPUs needed for the training of the system?
I mean, the AI hardware question is that is a deep one. So we're obviously hedging our bets here with significant orders of NVIDIA GPUs, or GPUs are the wrong word. There really needs to be, there's no, it doesn't, you can't like produce graphics. So that's what, it's not a graphic processing unit, neural net processing unit or something like that. Yeah, GPU is a funny word, like vestigial. And a lot of our progress in self-driving is training limited. Something that's important with training, it's much like a human. The more effort you put into training, the less effort you need in inference. So just like a person, if you train in a subject, you know, the sort of classic 10,000 hours, the less mental effort it takes to do something. If you remember when you first started to drive, how much of your mental capacity it took to drive, you had to be focused completely on driving. Then after you've been driving for many years, it only takes a little bit of your mind to drive, and you can think about other things and still drive safely. So the more training you do, the more efficient it is at the inference level. So we do need a lot of training. And we're pursuing the dual path of NVIDIA and Dojo. But I would think of Dojo as a long shot. It's a long shot worth taking because the payoff is potentially very high, but it's not something that is a high probability. It's not like a sure thing at all. It's a high risk, high payoff program.
Seemed like a wasted time.
Dojo is working, and it is doing training jobs. So, and we're scaling it up, and we have plans for Dojo 1.5, Dojo 2, Dojo 3, and whatnot. So, I think it's got potential, but I can't emphasize enough: high risk, high payoff. So, I think it still makes sense given the, even if it's a low probability of success for the very high. I think anyway. I'm belaboring the subject. It's a very interesting program. It has the potential for something special. There's also our inference hardware in the car. So we're now on what's called hardware 4, but it's actually version 2 of the Tesla designed AI inference chip. And we're about to complete design of. The terminology is a bit confusing. We're about to complete design of hardware 5, which is actually version 3 of the Tesla design chip, because the version 1 was Mobileye, version 2 was NVIDIA, and then version 3 was Tesla. So, and we're making gigantic improvements from hardware 3 to 4 to 5. There's a potentially interesting play where, when cars are not in use in the future, that the in-car computer can do generalized AI tasks, can run a sort of, GPT 4 or 3 or something like that. If you've got tens of millions of vehicles out there, even in a robo-taxi scenario where they're in heavy use, maybe they're used 50 out of 168 hours. That still leaves, well over 100 hours of time available of compute hours. It's possible with the right architectural decisions that Tesla may in the future have more compute than everyone else combined.
Don't use up my battery when it's parked. I don't want you using that.
And the next question comes from Colin Langham from Wells Fargo.
Oh, great. Thanks for taking my questions. As we're thinking about going into 2024, the press release talks about hitting 36,000 or slightly above in Q4. And the comments of the release talk about approaching the natural limits, and it sounds like you're continuing to try to whittle that away, but that sort of implies there's not much left. In addition, you have the hourly wage increase, I guess, so we'll add to that into next year. And I thought you said raw material costs are that benefit is sort of almost played out. So is there an opportunity to continue to go below the 36, or should we kind of be modeling that it kind of stays at this level into 24?
We are definitely aware of the cost increases which are coming through because of the wage increases. But like I said, we keep looking at other cost opportunities and try and figure out where else can we cut down. So there is definitely more opportunity to bring down costs further. I won't specifically guide to a number which we will try and get to, but there's definitely more opportunity there.
Yeah, we're chasing lots of cost opportunities on the design side still for 2024. North of 8 figures is what we're worth of, just in my organization, and Lars has got a bunch. And then from a commodities perspective, it's such a long
long lead.
cycle time through the whole material supply chain, that even with what we've already seen to this point, there's more to come on commodities reductions.
And there's still some tailwind left on the commodity.
That's what I mean, yeah.
And aluminum and steel.
Yeah.
And battery materials.
It boggles my mind to think that if we make a 1% improvement in costs, that's $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, on average, if we reduce the cost by 1 penny, $1 billion. What? And we started off, wasn't that long ago that we're only making like 10 cars a week. Yeah.
You were making more roadsters back then, though.
So where does it lead ultimately? With good execution, like I said, it's not a slam dunk, but with if we execute very well, I think Tesla could be the most valuable company in the world.
Thank you. Colin, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. In the commentary, you mentioned the taxes would go to the S&P 500 level. I think you've been trending slightly below 10%. S&P, I think, is typically 25%ish. Is that going to? Should we expect that to jump right up next year when we're modeling next year, or would it be like a gradual change over the next few years? And any cash impact from that tax change as well that we should be considering?
Yeah, so there's no impact on cash taxes from the release of the valuation allowance, which I spoke about. What it does is it's how you account for taxes on your books. So it's basically an accounting change, wherein there are certain jurisdictions, because we had enough NOLs, etc., wherein we didn't have to accrue book taxes. Now that the valuation allowance has been released and we have recognized deferred tax assets on the books, that means your tax rate immediately goes up.
Okay. I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for all of your questions, and we'll speak to you again in 3 months. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. I think it's over based on the fact that they said goodbye. So, anyway, bit rates all over the place. Okay, earnings call. Not the worst one in the world. I'm basically just accepting that Elon's going to continue to Elon. He really can't stop saying the same things over and over again. It gets old. I got to admit, it does get very old. Just hearing the same old, we don't have a crystal ball. The affordability of the products matters the most. The interest rates are too high. Tesla bot can take over the world. There's just continued delay of we're about to, accomplish this thing. Doesn't seem like the market, as usual, by the way, usually the earnings reports does not result in the stock doing well, because I think most people that buy and sell stock based on earnings are short-term day traders, or what I like to call gamblers. They're not really investing in the company. They're just trying to make a quick buck. So as long as a earnings report doesn't reveal some giant big reveal like the $25,000 car is shipping tomorrow, as long as it doesn't have that, then it's always going to sell off, because everyone's going to look at the earnings report and go, and then sell all their stock because they're looking for some big headlining feature. So that's why pretty much after every earnings call, you see a pretty big dip. After hours, it's down over 5%. I don't need to listen to these things personally, just for the record. I only do because everybody asks me to. Whenever I run a poll, everyone says, please react to it. So I'm doing it for you, but I just want to remind you all that this is a normal kind of earnings call now. Elon overhyping things, trying to convince everyone that, that Tesla market cap can exceed the volume of the known universe. Um, so what you're saying is buy low. Yes, buy low, sell high. The question is, what is low and what is high? Has Tesla seen their highest days? I don't know. I hope not. I still own Tesla stock. I'm not selling, but I do question if Elon is so forward thinking, so futuristic that he never realizes how many timelines he's missed. Like, he can be this way forever, essentially. He can. I don't even blame you. Don't even do it anymore. I won't blame you. We appreciate you suffering. The shareholder deck is somewhat interesting because usually they put in little announcements in there. I think the most interesting little tidbit from the earnings call was Elon gave more comments on the next generation vehicle platform than I was expecting. Because usually, anytime someone asks about the next gen vehicle, pretty much everybody at Tesla just immediately says we can't comment on future products. Moving on. So they just refuse to answer the question. This time, again, it's Elon, so we probably shouldn't take much validity from his comments. But he did say on the call today that their current schedule, which Elon was claiming was optimistic, was to start production for the next gen vehicle end of next year, which is actually later than the Reuters report that dropped this morning about Project Redwood, which they claimed would begin in mid 2025, which I thought sounded way too ambitious. And, there was a lot of rumors for a long time claiming that Tesla would be building and delivering Cybertrucks by summer of 2023. And obviously that didn't happen. So I think that the next gen vehicle is going to take longer than most people think. It already has. So if Elon's saying not till end of 2025, to me, that's an indication of easily 2026. No problem. It sounds like they're trying a lot of radical new manufacturing techniques. He said he wasn't that interested in a low cost vehicle. I still don't think he is. He's probably just admitting that, you know, I mean, the next gen vehicle platform can be a lot of different things. Elon probably wants to do more radical things with the next gen vehicle because he wants his robo-taxi. So if they do build a robo-taxi, it's definitely going to be on the next gen vehicle platform. Um, but as time goes on, he's probably being outweighed by the Tesla board. They're like, okay, Elon, you can keep working on your FSD stuff, but at a certain point, we need to make lower priced cars because we're, like they talked about pretty much during the entire call today, we're running out of like pennies we can cut out. Um, we can't lower the cost of production for the Model 3 and Y any or much further. I mean, they'll try to pursue it if they can, but it can't get much lower than it currently is. Mexico Gigafactory delay hurt Model 2 production timing. Well, I look at it as kind of the inverse because Elon said on the call today they don't want to start production construction on Giga Mexico until they've proven the assembly line at excuse me, at Giga Texas. That to me was kind of bearish on Giga Mexico. That was like Elon saying, we have a bunch of talented Tesla engineers that need to sleep on the assembly line to get it up and running, and we don't want to build Giga Mexico until we know absolutely how to build the next gen vehicle platform. So to me, that says, and they kind of talked about this on the last earnings call, Giga Mexico could start construction. They're choosing not to because interest rates are high and they don't want to collect too much debt and they don't want to spend too much cash when, they're going into a more margin restrictive market. So I don't think it's Giga Mexico's fault. I think it's more Tesla engineers don't want to all move there for several years and they already have most of the team um in Austin, so they want to start it there. Um Tor Aspen says, I own 12 cars in my life, 6 gasoline cars, 2 diesel cars, 1 vintage cars, 2 Toyota hybrids, and now we have a Tesla Model Y. The best car for us in the cold weather in Norway with preheat. Absolutely. The preheat makes the cold weather so much more tolerable. Um, Elon's message has been consistent. He acknowledged his over-optimism on timelines. Yeah, but it's if you're wrong about something, that means you're consistently wrong. I don't think consistency is good if it's wrong. If you could say Elon is consistent if he says full self-driving is coming next year or later this year. If he says that for 8 years, then he's consistent. That doesn't mean he's right. But if Elon's message is that he's consistently over optimistic, then that means we should sandbag every timeline he gives. So if Elon says the next gen vehicle will be built by the end of next year, to me that means 2026. which we're not that close to, honestly. So, sure, like low cost could mean low cost of production, not necessarily price for consumers. Exactly, Ivan. I do not believe that the launch model next gen vehicle will be 25,000. Tesla doesn't use that term anymore. They've stopped saying a $25,000 car. All they're talking about is a lower cost next gen vehicle. We don't know if they're factoring in the credit to achieve 25,000. But yeah, they're not staying very true to that $25,000 claim. That was just one slide they brought up on a passenger car reference during Battery Day, but almost everything they said at Battery Day has been scrapped. The only other car unveiled at Battery Day was the Plaid Plus Model S. They said that 4680s would increase range, and they haven't. They have actually weakened range by quite a bit. We thought they would charge faster and they charge slower. So everything about Battery Day, I think, should be scrapped. Again, when it comes to Tesla PR and marketing, there's just far too much overpromise, under deliver. And same thing with Battery Day. If we just didn't have that, I think Tesla would have been better off, because so many people now, in the same way that so many people were expecting a 500-mile range Cybertruck or a $40,000 Cybertruck, are now going to go into the production of the next gen vehicle and assume this is going to be a $25,000 car. I don't know why so many people are believing that when Tesla hasn't lived up to their old claims, and I feel like it's a lesson we should all learn, which is that you shouldn't hold Tesla to their word, especially as a lot of time goes by. And Battery Day was almost 4 years ago now. Elon is late on his timelines, but a decade ahead of his competition. Yeah, in some regards, BYD has surpassed Tesla in EV production, so I wouldn't necessarily say they're a decade ahead. I mean, they're ahead definitely in profitability and in supercharger availability for North America. Yeah, they're definitely a leader in many ways, but um, there's still this constant narrative of missed targets, missed timelines, or overpromise. Um, which does affect the valuation of the company, and it affects how much people trust you, because if you're constantly, well, besides China, which is the largest automotive market, so besides the biggest market, they're in the lead. Yeah. um People are less inclined to believe you if you have a proven track record of not holding up to your claims, which is why I don't think it's good to overhype things. And it just leaves people disappointed on otherwise really impressive things. Like, I think the Cybertruck's amazing, and I think it's a really cool vehicle, extremely capable, and yet the entire narrative around it is disappointment because expectation was too high. Um, so I don't take much excitement in the next gen vehicle platform, because I don't think it'll be ready next year. I don't think it's going to come out in 2025, and I don't even think it'll be early 2026. If Elon's saying their current plan is end of 25, then I don't trust him because of what he already said. He's an over optimistic timeline. You were getting tired of hearing the same thing. I was simply pointing out that Elon talks about the same things because that's what he's focused on. Yeah, I understand that that's abundantly obvious that Elon loves saying the same things over and over again. But my point is, if it's proven wrong consistently, do you know the definition of insanity? If it just keeps doing the same thing over and over again with no change in result, we call that crazy, Like, it's not a good indication if you just keep saying the same things over and over again, expecting a different result, and if the results don't change, that's just getting told. That's getting tired. Warren Redlick told me it'd be 17,500 after the tax credit. Yeah, didn't he say Project Highland is fake too? He also said that the Cybertruck would go over 500 miles on a charge. I remember that. Yeah. We can't depend on U.S. car manufacturers. They only built a new body design on old vehicle tech, new prices, add cup holders for new prices. I think they'll stay afloat. I mean, they're not doing EV transitions as aggressively as I want them to, but they've been bailed out before. I'm sure they can get bailed out again. Everyone knows to take his timelines with a huge grain of salt. Right, which is actually Elon's comments on the next gen vehicle platform to me proved that it's much further out than what the Reuters report was claiming. Because the Reuters report was the one claiming earlier today Project Redwood, which is the compact crossover, the next gen vehicle. Honestly, I wasn't very excited to hear that. I know a lot of people were. I want cheaper EVs and I want more efficient EVs. I just don't think a compact crossover is very. I kind of don't blame Elon for not being excited by it. I mean, I'm not in favor of robo-taxis because I find that more boring than, cheaper Tesla, but I want something more radical. I don't know if they have something radical in mind, but compact crossover doesn't scream radical to me. That all I picture when I read the report, they said Tesla's going to enter production with the next gen vehicle platform with Project Redwood in summer of next year. All I pictured was a small Model Y. And I hope I'm wrong. I really hope that's not it. If they do decide that the only way we can do high volume, and I think the report was claiming that Tesla was, reverse engineering a Toyota Corolla and a Toyota RAV4, and their goal is to figure out how to make the cheapest possible vehicle, new at least, that you can buy. If they insist that you need to have four wheels and you need to have 5 seats, then I guess a compact crossover is the best way to go. But I I don't get excited for a smaller Model Y, and I don't think it would. I mean, I'm sure it would sell well, but I don't think it would do well against the Model 3 and Y. I don't understand the people that claim that wouldn't eat into Model 3 and Y sales. I'm like, it absolutely would. I mean, everybody's buying the Model Y because it's like the cheapest Tesla you can buy, basically. So if suddenly it wasn't the cheapest Tesla anymore, your demand is definitely going to shift over. Um, so I would rather have a more radical redesign for the smaller car that's a bit more efficient and maybe has less seats or maybe even less wheels, but I guess I'm too radically thinking. Elon's radical thinking is robotaxi. My radical thinking is Aptera, just because I keep thinking that robotaxis are, I don't know. Thankfully, he didn't really provide much of a timeline on robotaxis this year. I don't think he's even thinking about it anymore. I think Elon's probably spending more of his time and money on bots now. It's like he didn't really finish the robotaxi thing, so now he's focused on the bots because he wasn't getting the result he wanted. Um, how much does GM and Ford lose on their EV per vehicle sale? They are waiting out until battery tech gets cheaper and build hybrids, which still have ICE maintenance issues. Yeah, I don't really blame them because they weren't selling their EVs at a profit, so I wish they would have doubled down more on their investment, but they're a combustion engine vehicle company. So when your business model is built around that, it's kind of difficult to say let's throw all of our profitable cars away and just focus all on our non-profitable cars. Yeah, that's unfortunately kind of how you bankrupt yourself. Um, Model Y with less power, cheaper prices would sell 3x. Yeah, and that would definitely push down the sales of your Model Y because who's going to buy a Model Y if they can get one for $20,000 cheaper that practically does most of the same stuff? The only problem is it's less powerful, which is not a common complaint. So I personally think a cheaper compact would cannibalize Tesla sales, both 3 and Y. I know a lot of people that like the 3 but want the Y, but they want the 3 to be a hatchback. So if they did a compact crossover, I see that diminishing the demand for the. So if that's the case, they're going to raise the price. In other words, I don't think the compact is going to be $25,000, at least not in the first year of production. Similar to the Cybertruck. That was the funniest part of this earnings call. I can't believe Elon. I feel like Elon doesn't even know what the Cybertruck costs based on his wording there. That was weird. He was like, we have a lot of demand for the Cybertruck, so we could raise prices a lot, but we don't think that's right. So we want to keep it affordable. And I was like, dude, you did raise the prices by like a lot, almost like it's almost twice the price of what people were expecting, particularly for the dual motor variant, which was the most popular variant. The dual motor 300-mile range variant, when they unveiled it, they said 50,000, and if you want it now, it's on the Foundation series, it's $100,000. So I don't know why he thinks that the Cybertruck is priced lower to be polite. I was very confused by his statements about the Cybertruck pricing. I'm like, don't act like you're being so generous keeping the prices low. You guys definitely jacked up the prices because of the high demand. And once you run out of Foundation Series buyers, then you will fall back to the still much more expensive than originally promised trims. The 500-mile range was supposed to be $70,000. Now the 300-mile range is going to be $72,000 with incentives. Without incentives, it's like $80,000. Give me a hot hatch. Yeah, I think it'll sell very well. It's just not that interesting, I guess. I don't know, because I think when you do a hot hatch, when you do something kind of tall, like a compact crossover, your frontal area is still fairly big, so you can't get terribly efficient. And I'm just an efficiency junkie. I want things to be crazy efficient like the Aptera. And I know that if they do a compact, it's basically Tesla's version of the Chevy Bolt. If it's cheap, great. But like I said, when demand is high and supply is low, Tesla doesn't make it cheap. So in reality, what I think this will end up looking like is a smaller version of the Model Y that starts at, $40,000. And as they catch up on orders, they will decrease the price. Maybe after 3 years, we see one for 25,000, which is good. I want them to be more affordable. I just wanted them to pursue a more radical design so that they wouldn't kill off their Model 3 and Y sales so heavily. I mean, we're already kind of seeing that with the Model S and X. It's becoming harder and harder to justify those vehicles when the 3 and Y are gaining all these new features. Um, so if they just do a hot hatch, I think Model 3 and Y sales are probably going to plummet unless they come up with some radical design that makes it far more efficient so you can use far smaller batteries. That's my main reason for wanting a super aerodynamic design or a super radical design, is so that if you can get maybe $7,000-8,000 sorry, 7 or 8 miles per kilowatt hour instead of 4, um the smaller version of the Model Y that starts at 40K. So that's a Model 3. Yeah, basically. I mean, except with all the things they already talked about. 48-volt architecture, no rare earth minerals. Who knows? They'll probably take out a bunch of things. Like the Model 3 now has the ambient lighting. It has ventilated seats. It has a rear-mounted display. I'm sure in the Tesla Compact, it probably won't have the ambient lighting. It probably won't have ventilated seats. It probably won't have the rear-mounted display. That maybe they'll switch to fabric seats to make it cheaper. I don't know, but Tesla, I don't think will just make sure that every single one they sell is 25K. I didn't see them do that with the Cybertruck. Everyone told me I was wrong, and then I ended up being right. So I'm feeling very validated now in my prediction that the next gen vehicle is probably still going to start around $40,000. Maybe with the tax credit that brings you to 32. So hey, it's pretty cheap, but you're probably going to miss out on a bunch of things that used Model 3s have for less money or close to the same price. Yeah, I would like a Cybertruck themed design, a very compact Cybertruck. I love the Cybertruck look and the steel, and I would love for them to bypass the paint process. Paint shops are very time consuming and expensive and not good for the environment. It's hard to make a paint shop that doesn't cause a lot of emissions. So that's things I like about the Cybertruck, bypassing the paint process, and things I like about the Aptera. The Aptera just uses wraps and materials that can hold up against the elements without paint. So I would rather them go a more radical route where we say, let's do a super cheap vehicle that's super efficient, and who knows, like an Aptera, you get efficient enough, you can even start charging it from the sun, but I guess Elon doesn't want to do that. Jackson Smith, thank you for 7 months of support. Very kind of you. Compact is too small. They only exist if that's all you can afford, or force you to pay more to drive a larger car with decent head and leg room, like the airlines making coach so small to force upgrade. Just basing it off of the rumors, which is a compact crossover, which is what everybody seems to think it's going to be. I don't want it to be that, personally. I don't think it should be that, but I think a better compromise would be a smaller occupancy vehicle that is more efficient than a Model 3. And if they do a compact crossover that's basically just Tesla's Chevy Bolt, I don't think it'll be much more efficient. So if you want it to go 250 miles on a charge, you're still going to need like a 50 kilowatt hour battery pack. In which case, I don't know how you make it that much cheaper. Bigger castings, maybe one vehicle comes out of a single casting, or the front and rear underbodies are all one piece or something. The unboxed manufacturing process. I don't know. There's a part of me that, based on Elon's wording today, made me think, oh, maybe Elon's thinking that most of the assembly line will be Tesla bots. So the Tesla bot will assemble the next gen vehicle. So build quality's gonna go way down. I want them to build something like an Aptera that's a bit more, because I think vehicles like the Aptera are the future. Like, Tesla has the data. They know that most vehicles on the road have less than 3 people in them. The average in 2019 was 1.5, and it's decreasing. There's a lot of people driving by themselves or with just one other person. So I would say it'd be a little crammed, but you could make it far more aerodynamic and far more tapered on the back and decrease the weight substantially so that you're getting maybe 7 or 8 miles per kilowatt hour, and then you can use a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack to go 300 miles. Just some kind of general rethinking of personal vehicles, I think, is needed, opposed to just let's just deliver more of the same thing. It's hard to get excited because it has to be Tesla's worst vehicle. So it'd be nice if it was radical and rethought in some way, so that, okay, it may not have the same utility as a Model 3 or Y, but it unlocks something else in regards to efficiency. What if someone wants to store a lot of stuff in it? Well, that's why we keep the Model 3 and the Model Y around. Higher price. The Model Y is already the best-selling car in the world, so we're debating what car should outsell the best-selling car in the world. It has to be worse than the Model Y, right? If it's cheaper. Would you survive in an accident in an Aptera? Do they have crash safety rating yet? They don't have official. It doesn't make sense to do crash safety testing if you don't have production vehicles yet. But yeah, they're doing PI builds. There's a ton of safety emphasis. I've done several videos on this channel, as have others, on how safe the Aptera is. With their rounded carbon fiber F1 inspired roll cage, it's very, very safe. They have a very large crumple zone, just as big, if not bigger, than a Model 3 crumple zone. They definitely have a much bigger rear crumple zone. If you get rear-ended in an Aptera, you're more likely to not experience the damage of the vehicle because there's less space between the seats and the end of the Model 3. And there's airbags in the Aptera, so it's a very safe vehicle. Yes, you would absolutely survive. I mean, an accident is not an objective thing. It's not a small vehicle. A lot of people just assume that the Aptera is small. It's wider than my Model 3, and it's outward mounted wheel pants that can absorb a side impact, whereas a Model 3 couldn't. The doors on most cars are very flat and not very strong. Like a truck slowly backing into my car would probably penetrate and bend the door inward. Wouldn't have to go very fast to do that. These doors are, they got airbags in them and stuff, but they're mostly for aerodynamics and cosmetics. They're not very strong, whereas an Aptera door is much more rounded, so the pressure of the carbon fiber body is pushing outward instead of just being like a flat sheet of metal. Compact or subcompact crossover, they are different. The rumor says compact crossover. They didn't say subcompact. I'm pretty sure it's about the size of a Chevy Bolt is what people were referencing. I don't think it's that objective. I think it's a spectrum of sizes. The Aptera looks like it would lose the front wheel and roll over. There's 2 front wheels. I mean, you could either have the car coming in from the side hit the wheel and push you out of the way, or in a Model 3, if a car came at you at the same way, it would hit the door. Would you rather be hit from the door or the outward mounted wheel? I would rather be hit by the wheel, because then the car absorbs the impact instead of me. The car absorbs the impact if it was impacted. Huge pickups and semis driving around humans, something will happen. Again, it's not a small vehicle. It has crumple zones equal or better than a Model 3. So if your mindset is, I need to be bigger than everything else on the road to feel safe, then you better buy a semi-truck. Even if you buy a Hummer, a semi-truck could wipe you out like that. So if we want to play the game of mass equals safety, yeah, all of your cars are going to lose unless you drive a semi-truck. Liftbacks are when the hinge is below 45 degrees. Hatchbacks are closer to 90 degrees. There's not textbook definitions. Everybody has different one. I mean, Aptera's center of gravity is still very low relative to the rest of the vehicle. So it's not, I think the problem I have with people talking about safety in the Aptera is they assume safety is a very objective thing. It changes a lot depending on the type of accident, where the vehicles collided, and the relative size of the vehicle. So yeah, a Model 3 is heavier than an Aptera, but that doesn't mean a Hummer is safer than a Model 3. That's how we get into the pedestrian death zone that we're in right now, is because everybody in the US is convinced we all need to own heavier, larger vehicles to be safe, and then it results in more people dying. And there's actually in front end collisions, your weight hurts you because you have more inertia. There's a great video. Look this up. I'll find it for you, actually. Why not? Steve from Aptera Owners Club did a great video on this, on why people are grossly oversimplifying safety. So the most common types of accidents, weight doesn't necessarily help you. I mean, you can imagine a worst case scenario when people are complaining about, oh, a vehicle's too lightweight. They're just assuming a head-on collision on the freeway, which is not the most common type of collision. Let's see. How safe is the Aptera? Oh, how do I paste this in the chat? I realize this is on this side. I'm not an engineer, but it doesn't take an engineer to know that there's more to safety than mass and weight. Safety goes up as the average weight goes down now that we have modern materials and techniques. It's not that simple, but yeah. Comparing anything to Tesla in safety will result in Tesla winning. Others get close, like Volvo and large EVs, but 2,000-pound vehicles get into accidents every day and people walk out of them. Yeah, it's not, again, I don't want people to think that just because a vehicle is lighter, that instantly makes it dangerous, because that's a really, really, in my opinion, stupid way to judge safety, is weight. Because if your game is just whichever vehicle weighs more will win, then we're all going to die against a semi-truck. There's semi-trucks everywhere, all the time, and they could hit you at any time. So whether you're in a 4,000-pound car or a 2,000-pound car, the semi's going to, steamroll you. Then I'm driving a Boeing 747. I think that's actually more dangerous than driving a car. Boeing's having a lot of issues right now. Aptera's lighter, but relative to its occupants and where the weight is in the vehicle, I don't think it's substantially more dangerous than a Tesla. Lighter helps pedestrian safety, right? Well, it's not just weight as much as it is visibility. The problem with bigger cars is they usually can't see in their approach angle. So everybody in America wants to drive these big SUVs and these big pickup trucks, and they have these really high hoods, and that pushes pedestrians downward when they get hit, and it also weakens the visibility for the driver. So there's been a huge uptick in pedestrian deaths because of larger vehicles, because of that exact mindset of, I need big car to be safe, which just frustrates me because it's creating the opposite problem. It's pushing everybody to think, well, I need to buy an F-150, and then someone else goes, well, then I need to buy an F-350, and before you know it, everybody's driving Hummer EVs. They were asking questions without a single suit. Yeah, I think there's safety is a very complicated subject that requires a lot of simulation and safety testing, but I know that Aptera has one of the highest roof strength one of the highest roof strength caliber. What's the term? It's a very, very strong crush rating for the roof because of its carbon fiber body compared to a traditional vehicle. And the rounded design does help a lot. The comparison I used with Aptera that they said was kind of a good analogy to reference is how weight is distributed when you kick a cardboard box versus kicking a beach ball. A traditional car like a Model 3 is very flat on the edges. So if you're kicking a cardboard box, the box isn't necessarily going to redistribute that impact as much, and you're more likely to penetrate the cardboard. Whereas if you're kicking a beach ball, you could kick it really, really hard. You know, imagine kicking a cardboard box as hard as you can. Your foot's probably going into the box. Kick a beach ball as hard as you can. The ball's just flying, but the inside isn't being impacted. So you're definitely going to move around more in an Aptera, but there's advantages to that because the weight and the impact is being distributed longer. So a lot of whiplash comes from how quickly the car goes from high speed to low speed. If it goes, you know, from 30 miles per hour to 0 really fast, that creates a huge bunch of whiplash for the passengers inside the car. Whereas if it's a more gradual descent, you're less likely to get whipped around. I'm not trying to say it's the safest thing in the world, but I'm just saying it's not the coffin everybody makes it out to be. Stiffness and elasticity. Thank you, Mike. Mike is an engineer. Boeing unfortunately doesn't make any more 747s. You'll have to get it used. Well, that's good. They're probably safer then. Otherwise, 737s are having trouble software and hardware wise, but do last a good amount of time. How many miles you got on this thing? The semi won't beat me in my Caterpillar 798 AC. We all got to drive Caterpillars down the road. It's also exasperated by big vehicles, but I feel safer in an SUV versus car because I can see further around cars in front of me. I mean, it's just because you're sitting higher. There's a lot of perceived safety advantages, but again, it doesn't really translate to anything. My opinion is that robo-taxi is a pipe dream. Tesla isn't ready for prime time for heavy commercial use. Just see Hertz. Yeah, I mean, I thought Hertz probably made the mistake of assuming that everybody wants to rent an electric car. Electric cars take some getting used to and some know-how on how they work. So it doesn't surprise me that the rental demand for them was very low because there's a lot of people that rent cars that don't know about EVs or don't care about EVs yet, hopefully, but just from sitting higher. But yeah, again, that doesn't inherently make it safer. Why are pedestrians anywhere near the road? Can we not make safe areas for pedestrians? Well, unfortunately, the places we drive are also places people like to walk. And there are sidewalks, and sometimes people need to cross the street. So go ahead. Try to redesign an entire city from the ground up to separate roads from sidewalks. Let me know how that goes. People saying that Cybertruck is a human death thinks am like, have you seen the front of a pickup? It's literally a wall. Yeah. No, the Cybertruck's actually much, much, much safer both for pedestrians and occupants than a traditional pickup truck because of the lower approach angle. The Cybertruck front angle is much, much lower than a traditional F-150 or a Rivian. So for pedestrians, even, I know that it looks sharp, but that's, in my opinion, kind of a dumb way to judge pedestrian safety. That one's pointy. That one's round. It's like most pickup trucks. Sure, they might not be as pointy as the Cybertruck, but yeah, like you said, it's just a giant wall going down the street. It's not like, would you rather I hit you with a round metal pole or a square metal pole? Like, is it going to feel much different? It's still a big metal pole hitting your head. So the better idea is to increase the visibility and not have the front hood so high so that if a pedestrian does get hit, they're more likely to go upward onto the windshield and not down under the car. And there's active safety systems, of course. Will FSD go straight to the Cybertruck in the next few weeks? No, it won't because of steer-by-wire. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Maybe the steer-by-wire is the reason. Cybertruck doesn't even have autopilot. Let's slow down on FSD. Let's just get lane centering. That's a fairly basic thing that's been on Teslas for almost a decade, and the Cybertruck, which they're charging $120,000 for, still doesn't have. That's kind of weird. The hood is, ow! You know, don't slap the truck then. What are your favorite wheels of all time, looks wise, not range wise? I don't care as much because when the car's moving, you can't really see. If we're purely speaking looks, I like the Uber turbines. The Cybertruck wheels, the inefficient ones that they had at the showroom that all the Cybertrucks have the same wheels right now. Those look cool. I like the look of them. I don't like how inefficient they are, but I do think they look nice. Yeah, I would heavily recommend watching this How Safe is the Aptera video from Aptera Owners Club. He dives into the most common types of accidents and how safety is kind of a moving target. You can make some design decisions that make it safer in certain circumstances and more dangerous in others. And he talks specifically about what you guys brought up, which is just massive, just like, oh, well, this is heavier, so it's safer. It's like, grayed out Geminis are pretty sick. Yeah, I've seen those. I like those. Hertz in 2022 raved about the low cost on maintenance, now complain damage repairs are too high. I attribute some to staff and customer lack of EV experience. Yeah, it's you don't want to give someone an EV who doesn't want an EV. That's really the simple way of putting it. Like, the only people who are buying EVs and getting into EVs are people who are interested in them. They want to know more about them. They're yearning for learning, they want to be educated. So they're willing to put up with some issues, and they're willing to put up with some learning curves. And rental car companies, a lot of the advantages to EVs come from charging from home. And if you're renting a car, you're objectively probably not at home. You're traveling, so dealing with fast chargers and how to precondition and all of that is just, it's not ideal for a rental car service because they're dealing with a lot of people that are not interested in EVs. So if you throw somebody who doesn't want to learn about EVs into an EV, they're going to have a bad time. And that's why we saw many car rental places where renting an EV was way, way cheaper than renting a gas car, because they couldn't get anybody to rent the EVs, but they could get plenty of people to rent the gas cars. So there's definitely educating to be done, and I do think that being more affordable is the right way to go. I'm glad to hear on the earnings call that they said we're being cautious with how much we spend on advertising. He said, like, we don't think the problem with EV adoption is purely awareness. It's a problem, but we think the bigger problem is affordability, which I agree with, and I think is a smart way to run your business. Target the people who actually want your product first, and then when you run out of people that actually want your product, that's when you can start, advertising or trying to educate more people. But I don't think we've got there yet. I still know tons of people. I know it's anecdotal evidence, but I still know a ton of people in my personal life that really, really want a Tesla or an EV of some kind. They just can't afford it. They're waiting for it to get cheaper, and they're waiting for it to become more accessible. And I would say, yeah, EV companies, go after those people first. Don't go after the people who genuinely don't, but these people are buying Toyotas and Fords that run on gas. Why don't they? All of them should be buying Teslas. It's like, no, there's a ton of brand loyalty involved. There's a bunch of consistency involved. People don't want to learn new things. People are comfortable with what they know. Trying to get them on board with the whole concept of charging and supercharging and preconditioning and maintaining a battery, that's just too much for a lot of people. So the best way to get them interested is to make them jealous of their friends that spend very, very little money on EVs and have good service and good reliability. So just focus on your established brand first, Tesla, and then worry about advertising to others. I like my tires to have sidewall, so I'm always going for the smallest wheel. Does the Cybertruck even have traffic-aware cruise control? I think it does, yeah. I've watched a lot of videos on the Cybertruck from people that own it, and it does have traffic-aware cruise control, but not even basic autopilot. Can't wait. Our energy comes from solar, wind, hydro, nuclear, no more coal, gas. When people can shut up on coal, gas, charge your EV. Well, that's what I love even more about the Aptera. Is like, oh, you charge it from the grid. No, actually, this thing charges itself. It's like, oh, well, crap. Doesn't matter how dirty the grid is if you're driving an Aptera, right? Also, the grid argument is still stupid. Even with a very, very dirty grid, EVs are still much, much better for the environment. I like sitting higher, helps with bright white headlights front and back. I prefer not to go blind. Yeah, but if everyone thinks that, then it doesn't make a difference. Everyone can blind you if everybody's driving SUVs. I guess we all got to drive semis. I think that's the end result we're discovering from this. Me bigger than everyone else, protects me. Why do you think autopilot is not in the Cybertruck? Steer-by-wire is a good theory, but I do wonder if the dimensions of it cause problems. Like, there's rear wheel steering, so the turning radius is different, and turning it like this in a parking lot is not going to do the same thing as a Model Y. So the code has to be kind of rewritten from the ground up for the Cybertruck. I wonder how long it's going to take, though. It's kind of shocking that deliveries started end of November, so it's been almost 2 months since they've been out and they still don't have it. Most EVs are charged late at night when the grid is low use. Yeah, it's a stupid argument. I don't even bother arguing with people that say EVs are worse for the environment, because you're not going to reason with that person. You're not going to. They're believing what they want to believe. They're going to cling to the evidence that supports their viewpoint and ignore the evidence that doesn't. So you're not getting anywhere with people that think that. It's a very, if you take 2 seconds of research, you'll discover that, yes, believe it or not, if your car doesn't spew out toxic fumes, it's actually better for the environment. I know, crazy, right? Even with coal gas charging your EV, they're still cleaner. Turns out not having a tailpipe is a huge difference. Yeah, it's a silly thing to debate in 2024. If someone hasn't figured that out by now, I don't think they're gonna agree with you at any point. Um, let's see. Robo-taxi is a pipe dream. Yeah, I know a lot of people like SUVs. It makes sense. It's like the Swiss Army knife of cars. It just does a little bit of everything. It sits a lot of people. It has a lot of storage. It's more efficient than a truck. It can be sporty. I don't know. I just think minivans have such a negative stench. I feel like a minivan could be much more efficient and practical. I don't even know the difference really. The main thing I like is the sliding doors. I think sliding doors are cool. But people are just like, ew, minivan, ew. It's like, you have good ideas right in front of us, and we're just like, yeah, but it doesn't look cool, so I don't like it. I feel all arguments against EVs will fall away with new tech, faster charging, cheaper and more efficient batteries, more cost parity to ICE. Yeah, I don't think it's really up to the manufacturers personally. I don't think advertising is a good way to educate people. You need, if you want someone to buy an EV, you need to get them in the mindset where they actually desire it. They want to know more about it. If someone doesn't want to know, they're not going to listen. Um, and the best way to do that is to outnumber them. So we need to sell as many of them as possible, and that involves getting them as cheap as you possibly can, which Tesla's going in that direction. So I'm grateful for that. Get them as cheap as they can. Already, I think, the next gen vehicle, people are trying to get excited for a $25,000 car in 2026. You can buy used Model 3s for $25,000 now, and it probably has advantages over that car. Um, there's used Model Ys dipping into the low $30,000 range already. So I don't think the next gen vehicle platform is going to be this big catalyst or this big takeoff point. At least right away. It's probably going to take a while before it brings in meaningful volume. I honestly think if it's a compact crossover, it's probably going to do a lot better in Europe. The compact cars don't do great in the US, which is kind of unfortunate because that's where they want to build it. And Shanghai also does very well with those kind of smaller, cheaper cars. So I'm kind of like, yeah, it's cool that you want to build it at Giga Texas, but it's not really a great market for it. I feel like it'd be better off starting in Europe or China. Um, People saying EV fuels are better. People don't know it's not just CO2. That's probably what about all the crap comes out. Toxic to people and animals. Compact minivan like VW. I wouldn't design it the way they designed the Buzz, but yeah. Yeah, hydrogen is also a horrible idea. It's like anybody in favor of hydrogen hasn't thought about it. That's how I've experienced it. I've gotten into many, many arguments with people on hydrogen, and it's usually because they haven't thought about it. They haven't thought more than just the vehicle itself. Anyone I talk to who wants to do hydrogen is just thinking about energy density. That's all. That's just like, well, you can fit more energy in a tank with hydrogen. Okay, how does the energy get there? How do you build out the infrastructure? How much electricity does it take to store the hydrogen, move the hydrogen, harness the hydrogen out of water, the atmosphere? Once you bring all of that in, it just makes a huge mess. When do I think Project Juniper Model Y will come out in cost? Highlander didn't increase much in price. Yeah, I think probably China later this year. I don't know about summer. It's going to be harder because in the US we build Model Ys in 2 separate factories. I don't know if Tesla is going to be interested in shutting down 2 factories at the same time. So I think there's a greater likelihood that they just refresh one factory and then maybe the next factory later. So that means that they might just start doing, depending on how quickly Giga Texas can transition Juniper, they might just make it Juniper is only on the performance. So like there's a performance Model Y that gets all the new features, and then non-performance Model Y still look old and have the old headlights and the old interiors. And it might be a harder thing to transition. Also, the Model Y is kind of Tesla's bread and butter, so they might be more hesitant to shut it down. I would say China's probably going to get the new Project Juniper refresh end of this year, probably around Q4, maybe October. That's when Model 3 got it. And like they said in the earnings report, it only took them 2 days. Sorry, 2 months. 2 days, that would be impressive. In 2 months, they refreshed the Model 3 assembly line and got back up to full speed. So similarly, I think they probably do that with the Model Y within 2 months, get it all refreshed. And then the US, yeah, we're probably going to have to wait a while because Fremont is not as quick at updating, and the Model Y makes a lot of Tesla's money, so they might be more hesitant to shutting it down. And you need green hydrogen, which is 10 times more than gasoline. Right, it's more expensive than gas. Uh, do I think any significant updates to 2024 Model Y before Juniper update? Probably not significant. I mean, in China, they added a little ambient lighting to the Model Y before Juniper, so there's just a little light strip on the front. I don't count that as significant. But if there are going to be significant upgrades like 48 volt and steer by wire, I would guess that would come with the Juniper refresh. I don't think they would do anything that massive before then. Hydrogen storage on vehicles is difficult. Yeah, well, the vehicles is one problem. The infrastructure is the much, much bigger problem. I was really hoping the Cybertruck could replace my Ram 2500. It doesn't have enough range, and the Cybertruck can't tow enough. It would be used like an SUV for me and not a truck. Yeah, I think that's a lot of people's situation. But that's the problem. It was the expectation, you know? If they would have been more reasonable with the expectations from the beginning, you wouldn't have gotten your hopes up. Aptera has like a Formula One roll cage. Yeah, those roll cages are heavy duty. They're designed for like 200-mile-per-hour collisions, you know? Toyota looking at hydrogen combustion. Doesn't hydrogen burn hotter than gas, so your engine would break more often? So I don't know. It's not worth pursuing. Any little bit of reason. If anyone could address the infrastructure problem of hydrogen, then we could get into the efficiency of the car itself. But you cannot switch to a new fuel source without infrastructure. And the electric infrastructure is super duper easy because we already use electricity. There's power everywhere. You charge your phone. We got power to our houses. We got power at grocery stores. So it's fairly simple to build in a DC fast charging station compared to the amount of time and money it puts in to build a hydrogen refueling station. And then they have to be pressurized, and they transfer all this air, and that gets really cold, and then it has to take more time to repressurize. It's a big mess, the whole infrastructure problem. It's not worth it. But anyway, I've been live for 3.5 hours. We got a lot of nothing burgers today, but thank you all for keeping me company during it and joining me during the live stream. I hope you guys enjoy your EV coverage. I hope we can talk more about the R2 platform, which should be unveiled in the not too distant future. That's honestly far more exciting to me than the next gen vehicle platform, which is not hyping me up too much. But Rivian's going to NACS, and they're working on a cheaper model. And I love Rivian, but my only complaint is that it's just too dang expensive, and the charging infrastructure isn't great. So I'm very excited for the R2 platform. You're wrong, but okay. That's good. Good choice of words, Dylan. Thank you all. Have an excellent rest of your day. Bye bye.